welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogmen, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppelliser.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. So, how's everybody been doing? Good? Everything is good over here on this end. Yep. For my momentary weather report, it's hot. How's that? Nothing else sad except it's really been hot. Besides that, you know what? For those of you who are watching, even though it's a little bit staggered, we had like our first kind of, that's not really a hurricane scare for Florida. But, that Hurricane Aaron, like skirting up the coast of the United States. But of course, it went to a category 5. So we had these big announcements. Oh, monster storm or category 5 or, stuff like that. And from what I've seen so far, all it's got is just, like out in the Outer Banks, they've gotten some flooding. And you know what? It just, wherever you go, it's great to live on the water, especially on the coast. But that's the downside. The downside is, besides probably your humongous insurance bill, is just dealing with stuff like this. You just can't. I mean, in other words, there's always, how they say there's always a downside to everything. Well, that's one of them. So anyway, yeah, that's it. But that's about the only thing interesting. And I'm going to repeat myself. Dull is underrated, especially when it comes to the weather. I'll take dull any. When you're a kid, I remember when I was growing up, it's a hurricane, no school. The lights will go out. And that was like great because you're not an adult. You didn't have to worry about those things. But then you grow up and you're like, oh my God, a hurricane. So yeah. I'm gonna hope that all the hurricanes that come out, they just do exactly that. They just go off somewhere into the Atlantic somewhere. And hopefully they spare, let's see, Bermuda, and that's about it. So anyway, let's see. Let me see. I was looking at some lately I've been bringing you just like little tidbits of news of like interesting stuff that's going on here. And I try to look, believe it or not, for non-UFO stuff, but it's very little when it comes to like unusual stuff. Most of it ends up being, it goes back to it comes back to UFO. Let's put it this way. Let me silence this because, as you know, I have even adult children that their timing is impeccable. But anyway, let me get this one on here. That even when I went to a psychology, which is Psychology Today, sometimes I look at their articles. It was like, wait a minute, you guys are also talking about UFOs. It's like, wait. So anyway, let me show you this here. UFOs and aliens. All right, here we go. Okay. Well, basically what this report is saying, what is UFOs, aliens, and the problem of evil? What is a psychological significance of the UFO or UAP phenomena? Now, this is
basically what they're saying in his key points: we tend to fear and project our shadow onto strangers. Evil is and should be one of life's ultimate concerns, and it is incumbent upon us to recognize, acknowledge, and constructively address the reality of evil. Okay. And of course, mysterious phenomena of UFOs or UAPs inevitably touches on matters of religion, spirituality, morality, and psychology, including our innate quest for meaning, and especially on the perennial problem of evil. We humans possess a primal, perhaps instinctual proclivity to perceive and deem that which we do not understand as, i.e., the unknown, as negative, destructive, or evil. Um, how's this? Without going into depth into the rest of the article, it's almost like, are we making UFOs out to be evil just because we don't understand it or we don't know what it is? Says here, psychological dynamics and existential needs, you know, uh, like that can foster belief in UFOs, extraterrestrial visitation, or abductions, especially abductions. Fervent, far-fetched, unswerving, and unlikely reports with absolutely no objective evidence or corroboration. There we go. Or corroboration. I'm sorry. Can in some cases sound like the stuff of delusions or hallucinations heard every day in psychiatric wards around the world. And like hallucinations and delusions, these reported experiences can sometimes serve as a sort of projective test, revealing hidden conflicts, fears, resentments, repressed memories, traumas, and anxieties, and sometimes positive feelings. Not only the psyche of individual experiencers, but deeply rooted in our collective unconscious psyche as well. All right. Basically, what it goes into is like how much of maybe people that report seeing UFOs or an abduction are they reenacting some type of trauma from their childhood? Okay, or is just the very fact that we don't know that much about UFO/UAP extraterrestrials, does that make us fear it? Says here, human beings historically harbor a primal fear of the other and the unknown, and superstitiously see them as threatening harbingers of evil, whether these are people of different races, ethnicities, nationalities, or religions, or uninvited, unwelcome strangers from outer space. We project our so-called shadow, viewing them as the evil enemy. All right. Consequently, we are prone to attacking verbally or physically the unknown object of our fears, which causes untold interpersonal and international conflict. Blah, blah, blah. If aliens, assuming they truly exist, eventually turn out not to be trustworthy, demonstrating hostility, aggression, malice, evil intentions, and pose a mortal threat to humanity, as depicted, for example, in H.G. Wells' science fiction novel War of the Worlds, they will need to be fought and resisted despite their superior technology, if humanity is to survive. That they even possess or represent such a potentiality for evil is for some people frightening, reason enough to deny their existence entirely, not to mention the shattering impact that the reality of alien life would have on our religious, philosophical, and scientific beliefs. Now, part of that I kind of agree on a little bit, but you know what? Part of me believes that naturally, and I'm not talking just about aliens, if you have a good sense of self-preservation, whether it's on a personal level or in a community, you first have to be a little bit distrustful of something that you don't know or you don't understand until it's how is that? It's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust you either until something proves itself. All right. In other words, yeah, we would like, we'd have a kumbaya moment with the ETs, but what if they're not here for a kumbaya moment? Isn't it better just to wait and see or figure it out before like saying, hey, welcome? I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think? Is it, are being predisposed to be frightened of extraterrestrials/UFOs? Or is it the right thing to do just in case? Or in some cases, are some people that claim to have had experiences with anything, whether UFOs, mostly with abductions, I would think, are basically reliving some type of trauma, maybe from their childhood, repressed memories, something else that happened, and they, whatever that situation was, it wasn't, how's this? It wasn't, had nothing to do with extraterrestrials. It was something, but they, to cope with it, they put it in that category. Let me know what you think. But in the meantime, let me tell you about our guest today. Has been here before. His name is John Milor. He's an author of several books with outstanding reviews. He writes in a number of different genres to include his unique brand of Christian ufology. He also writes children's literature, fantasy, sci-fi comedy, biographies, song lyrics, and poetry. He's also a radio talk show guest for numerous programs. Aside from writing, Myler served in the military fresh out of high school. He started with the active duty Army infantry as an M60 gunner. He then transitioned to the Air National Guard and retired as a Chief Master Sergeant E9, serving as the Chief of Cyber Operations for the United States Western Air Defense Sector. 2021, Myler transitioned from the military to the private sector, where now works in cybersecurity, protecting the critical infrastructure utilities of the United States. He's a family man and has a wide variety of interests, ranging from high-octane outdoor activities such as sports, motorcycles, camping, fishing, canoeing, archery, and survival craft, to playing the drums, ethical hacking, and writing books. He's also a member of Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, and he's currently pursuing certification as a UFO field investigator. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, John? Let me unmute you. That would help. Now, wouldn't it?
Okay. Yeah.
So, how's everything been for you?
It's been really good. It's been really good. I thought for this show that I would focus on talking a little bit more about like ghosts and the
Sure,
things
that's
that
fine. We
could
can
be.
go wherever you want to go with this.
Yeah, you mentioned it did seem familiar that I'd been on this show before. So I was
Yes, you
like, okay,
have.
yeah.
Yeah, you told me about some
Oh,
really weird experiences you had, I think, and when you were like in South America, I believe, or Central America.
it was Panama.
Panama.
During the
Okay, I knew where that was. Like, what? Okay,
during the
yes.
Panamanian conflict. Yeah.
Yes, I remember. See, I
Yeah.
haven't forgotten that. That was like, huh. But I'm not kidding. When I look up, just not the regular news, but weird news, everything is UFOs and ETs, in some way, shape, or form. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
That's prophecy for you.
so
Jesus said that when he returns, it'll be like the days of Noah. And the days of Noah, if you've read Genesis chapter 6, it was about these angels coming down to earth in their chariots.
okay,
I have my opinions of what an angelic chariot looks like.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, literally, Ezekiel's wheel is described from the side, it's a transparent dome on top, beryllium, heat resistant metal on the bottom, two sets of wings that are connected in the middle that don't flap.
okay, yeah,
And then from top down, you got wheels within wheels. And if there's lights here, they could be interpreted as eyes in the spokes of the wheels within wheels. So it's just flying around erratically like this, and he's trying to describe it. That's why you get such a variety of things in his explanation, Ezekiel chapter 1 and 10. But when you dissect it piece by piece, he even talks about landing gears coming down and stuff. I mean, it's an angelic chariot. It's not going to look like a Roman chariot 2,000 years
right,
ago. It wouldn't have wheels on the side. It's flying. Horses of fire, right?
yes,
Propulsion. Horses were the only kind of propulsion they knew of. They referred to angelic chariots as chariot was a generic word for vehicle. It's not. I don't believe it was intended as this is a no kidding chariot. I think it was more like, well, the Romans run around and the Egyptians run around in these things with a horse pulling it. That's a vehicle.
right. In other words, this is not from like the Ben-Hur movies, when you got the chariot
Right,
races.
right. This is an astounding vehicle surrounded by lightning and fire, and it's flying and erratic, and it's wheels within wheels 1 minute and all kinds of wings and eyes and
Let me ask you, do you think, because it was only a couple of months ago that they were now putting out another report that the Pentagon had also put out stories, in other words, stories like, hey, I'm so and so and I saw a UFO, just to disguise the fact that some of these UFOs or UAPs were really not ET in origin, but were them testing out different types, I guess, of aircraft that they were producing. Do Do you think there's
Yeah.
any truth to it that not all the UFOs are ET in origin?
These days, there's so much going on. It's all of the above, letter D.
Right. Okay.
We've had their technology for quite some time. We've been reverse engineering it for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of our technology, the computers that we're talking on, were inspired from that technology. I
Okay.
don't think we invented a lot of things. I think we saw something and we'd been pecking away at it, and we went from transistors, to where we're at now, and with AI, in what, 50 years? That's incredible speed at which we've been developing our technology. And I believe that it's because we've been reverse engineering, and they probably had stuff for quite some time.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of it's ours, some of it's theirs. And I especially believe some of it's from beyond because the Bible talks about it. I believe in ETs more because of the Bible than what I see in the news. So
Do you think
it's
they're
an interesting
friendly
subject.
or not, or just don't care? I mean, what I mean,
Well,
indifferent.
yeah. So there's all these categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's angels, and they're good and bad angels, right? The
Right.
Bible's very clear. So obviously there's good guys. We know the bad ones. The Bible specifically talks about them getting cast down to earth.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that there aren't any bad ones out there still, but a group of them got cast down to this planet and they're confined here. In a higher
Okay.
dimension, they're still in first heaven, I would call it, a higher dimension. On the
All
Earth
right.
is a larger planet in a higher dimension, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where they rule and reign. They're pretty much in charge of what happens here, good ones and bad ones. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 32. The boundaries of this world, all the national boundaries are established by the beings that rule over them in that higher realm.
Okay.
And that's on Earth. Higher dimension, another dimension, but still on this planet. But there's other planets, and I believe that they come from other planets as well. Big distinction. The word heaven is plural. When you read the word heaven in the Bible, you're reading the heavens, and
Okay.
it's synonymous with outer space and multiple dimensions. So
Okay.
it's a lot to take in and understand. Hence, I wrote that book. But and a lot of it comes from just questions. I would come across something, and the first part of my life as a kid, I was totally immersed in paranormal stuff. I was
Okay.
like Fox Mulder, when I was a teenager. I could
Okay.
quote you everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then Jesus visited me when I was 21 years old after the Army, after I
Mm-hmm.
had that encounter in the jungle in Panama, talking to that
Yes.
glowing ball of light. And all of this paranormal stuff had happened in my life. So I knew those things from experience were real. But then I encountered Jesus, and like my great grandmother, I was like, well, he's real too. I believed he was real before, but now he was like real.
Okay.
he,
Right. No,
he
I understand.
yeah, he literally visited me, and he spoke his name in my ear. So a one word conversation, but conveyed a lot to me, and it stuck with me over 30 years now. And that's when I started reading the Bible immediately, and I started connecting the dots with all of this paranormal stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, there's ghosts in the Bible, there's Bigfoot in the Bible, there's demons, angels, there's entities that are not necessarily angels that might be out there. The
Right.
Bible has words for these. It refers to the host of heaven. It's used 18 times in the Bible, and it's a broader term than angels. It could be, my belief is that God had created life on other planets just like here, that there were
Mm-hmm.
versions of Adam and Eve out there just like us. And in many of those worlds, Lucifer didn't deceive them, and they continued to develop, became very advanced. Technology is a natural expression of intelligence in the physical world. And so they developed these technologies and they used them. We get confused though, because God delegates things to angels, right?
Right.
So angels might come here in their spaceships and do things interfering in our society, and our cultures are apt to call them gods, or a god. And
Mm-hmm.
I big chunk of my research is to correct that. um, let's not demote the creator just to elevate these other beings.
Right.
I believe the Bible. So um, I pointed out some very important things that I think. Genesis 2:7, God made us in his image. We were not seeded here by ETs. I reject
I
that.
know you hear that all the time. You
Yeah.
hear that, oh, they either seeded us or tweaked us or something
Well, they
along
did
those lines.
tweak us.
You think
I do
so?
believe they
Okay.
tweaked us. Yeah, Genesis 6, it's literally documents that they tweaked us. And what
Mm-hmm.
happened? The tweaking was horrific. It resulted
Okay.
in the entire genome being so corrupt with these Nephilim, these hybrid angel humans and hybrid
Mm-hmm.
angel animals, of which
Okay.
Bigfoot is probably one. Uh, and the world became so corrupt with these, they were inherently violent, and God had to wipe out the planet in the flood of Noah.
Okay.
And then, even after the flood, they came back. So there's all of this whole paranormal stuff that the Bible talks about, and I was really surprised that the people back then, 30 years ago, that I would talk about these things, that they would be like, um, all these red flags would go off. They'd hear me talk about ghosts or something, and they would just want to put this demonic label on everything. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I want to understand it. I don't want to just put a label on it. Um, Not every ghost is bad. I mean, the Bible even
Right.
talks about good ghosts. Um, when Cain killed his brother Abel, the first ghost was Abel. When God
Okay.
came, um, he heard Abel's voice crying out from the ground. And if there's any confusion, I mean, like, it reiterates in the New Testament, Hebrews chapter 11, by faith, though he was dead, Abel was spoke out from beyond the grave. That is a ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. Beyond the
So
grave. That's yeah.
yeah, and he's not a bad guy. Abel was righteous, right? Um, so he's an example of a good ghost. My great grandmother saw my great grandfather, who was a preacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the day before she died,
Okay.
she came in and was having breakfast any other day with her daughter, my grandmother Ruth, and my grandma Thelma said, "Well, when I woke up this morning, Rant was standing at the foot of my bed, holding his hands out to me like
There,
this,
there you
and he
go.
was he was in glory. He was young, and I felt all this joy and peace and love. And I could have left this morning." And she said, "I'm going to go very soon." The next day, she died.
Yeah, that was funeral, right? You
Yeah.
hear that. You hear that a lot from people that work in either hospices or the nursing homes or oncology,
Hmm.
where they get a lot of people that are soon to pass away will start talking like that, even
Hmm.
if their health might not be the best, but there's nothing there that thinks, okay, any minute now they're going to pass. But when
Yep.
they start having that, making those comments, a lot of people say, yes, now we
We're
already
having
know.
conversations.
Right, we're
Sam
having
Kinison.
conversations with or I saw so and so in the room or things like that. People that have
Hmm.
passed on, they kind of know, okay, something's going on. Pretty soon this person's going to leave, even if their health is stable. How's that?
Yeah. The
But
famous comedian Sam Kinison.
mm-hmm.
He used to be a preacher when he was younger, and
I
he
didn't
got
know
hit
that.
by yeah, he was a pastor. Fire and brimstone. He would scream a lot. That's where he got a lot of that screaming
Okay.
from. But then he was hit by a car, and it kind of altered his personality. It made
Mm-hmm.
him a lot more on edge. This happened when he was a kid. And then
Okay.
when he got older, he was a pastor for a while, and he was just barely scraping by.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a knack for making people laugh, and that's when he tried out comedy and discovered, my goodness, he was a
Let me
natural at
tell you
making people
something.
laugh.
If
Even
there
though
was
his
any,
comedy was pretty,
if you had told me any comedian that one time was a pastor, I would never have thought of him at all.
you
It'd be
never would
like,
have thought of it. Well, when he was on his deathbed, his
okay.
brother walked in and saw him in a conversation, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know. I took it too far. I'm sorry. You know, what can I say?" And he was just in this long like wasn't even registering. His brother was there, and his brother's like,
Right.
I think he's having a conversation, a real conversation, working out these things, and maybe having his life review right here, but still one
Right.
foot over here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that happens. So
Yes.
let me open up here by just putting out this question. So I wrote this
Okay.
question, and I came out with 7 categories.
Okay.
The question is, what is a ghost? And so this is one of the things that I dealt with when I was as a believer, and I'm reading the Bible, and I talked
Mm-hmm.
to Christians about, ghosts, and then they would talk about Lazarus and the rich man, and when you die, you either go to heaven or hell. There's nothing in between. So if there's
Right.
a ghost, it's either it's probably a demon. It's not going to be your deceased loved one, and this
Yeah,
and
I've,
that. And
I've
I'm like,
I've heard of that. Like, yeah, like if that's a
I,
ghost, that's really a demon in disguise.
mhm.
That kind of deal.
Right, right. And I'm like, yeah, well, maybe that can explain some. But I think you're oversimplifying it. I don't. I think Jesus was referring to a specific person for starters.
Mm-hmm.
Lazarus is the only person mentioned by name in any of Jesus's parables. It's very likely, and some have debated this, that he was talking about somebody that the people knew,
Right.
and and maybe the rich person, they might have known him too, but that name was not. He didn't name drop whoever the rich person was. He
Right.
did mention Lazarus though. And so Lazarus went to the place of the righteous dead, and then there were people in the really bad place, and that was in the underworld. And I believe those places exist. However, I do believe that when you die, that there's this spectrum of alternate realities
Mm-hmm.
that you pass through. And I've come to understand this from like people that can astral project and go to those places. And Robert Monroe, for example, talked about locale 1, locale 2, and all
Mm-hmm.
of these things. Um, So there's the aspect of where is hell,
Right. Right.
it's not as cut and dry as I think
So
people
it's
have
not
been.
like, yeah, the up or down kind of deal. Like there's
Yeah,
an in between.
there's blessed ground, there's cursed ground, there's hells, there's heavens, and so there's a lot of things. So some of the questions that I would ask people, just to kind of get it started, is ghost clothing.
Yeah.
Can you explain ghost clothing? What if ghosts are are only the spirits of deceased people or demons? Can you explain their clothing? What about Lincoln's ghost train? People
Yeah.
have seen it for years. An
Yes.
entire train, it was never alive.
And
So
an
what's going
animated.
on there?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah, ghost sounds. I've seen shows where they went into a place and they had their recording stuff and they're hearing these weird sounds, and it sounded, they were like, that sounds like billiards, like pool
Mm-hmm.
balls. Then they
Yes.
did some research and found out it used to be a pool hall, and the
There you
sounds
go.
were like impregnated into the matter in the
Yes.
walls and stuff, and
Yes.
still playing back. Um, so this kind of brings me to psychometry. So
Mm-hmm.
here's a theory, right?
Okay.
When something happens in an area, like a brutal murder or something, an enormous amount of emotion and energy, mental, cognitive energy, is burst out of a person. And it's not just murder. Murder's probably the number one on the list that can cause it, but
Sure. Yeah, but
extreme
as far as
joy.
intense emotion, yeah.
Yes, even extreme joy, extreme love,
Mm-hmm.
people can leak this emotion. And
Yes.
it literally comes out of us on a quantum level, and it's probably a type of matter. And it gets
Okay.
stuck into objects like, any old thing, right? And
Okay.
there's a movie called To Catch a Killer, and there was a person who had the ability to just grab an object and talk about the person who was associated with that object.
Mm-hmm.
And they used a psychic who was holding objects that the person who was murdered had. She described how he was killed, where he was at, how he felt, the nature of the wound, where the body was dumped, and details about who the killer was. And all of that from just touching objects. So I'm like, well, that's energy of thought.
Yes.
And if you look at that, you go into a place that's just got tons of energy, like some old castle in England or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got all this energy. Maybe it's not even actual spirits of the deceased, but it's just this residual energy
Something
that's
that's imprinted
there.
on the fabric of
Hmm.
whatever. And like you
some
said,
people,
especially if a lot of living has gone on in those walls, between those walls.
mm-hmm, and some people have a knack for playing the recording back. They're
Yes.
only perceiving it. And the energy, it's audio, it's visual, it's tactile. They can taste, they can smell, they can feel temperatures, textures. They get all of this energy because it's cognizant, it's from the brain. All of the input going
Hmm.
into the brain is coming out of a person for many, many years or whatever. And then they go in there and they can sense it. And in some cases, they can play back a recording. They could see
Yes.
something in the past that happened. So is that really a ghost there, or are they just playing a recording? So
Right.
there
Which is
might
a lot of
just be.
times what they consider residual hauntings, which is there's no intelligence. It's just maybe something that happened on a loop, kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
repetition,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
that
So
kind.
that's a recording haunting, and then they call sentient hauntings are slightly different because you can
Hmm.
actually interact with them. So there's a difference
Yes.
there. Um, then you got this another category. Number two is artificial entities.
Okay.
Um, from Tibetan mysticism, the
Like a
Tibetan
tulpa.
monks were supposedly able to create tulpas.
Yes.
I wrote about that in this book, um, kind of a sci-fi book, and he creates a tulpa of his deceased wife because he's a quadriplegic, just stuck in a bed. And he knew about this from research when he was a kid,
Okay.
and so he thought, well, I got locked in syndrome and I'm paralyzed uh, entirely on my body and I can't even talk. Trapped. What do I do
Okay.
with my time? I'm going to visualize my wife standing at the foot of my bed. And he does this for a
Okay.
couple of years,
Right.
day in, day out, until somebody else walks into his room and actually sees his wife standing at the foot of his bed.
Right.
And that's the premise of the story. And then eventually it leads to his real wife coming back and inhabiting the body, possessing the body, because this apparently can happen too. If you create enough energy with your thoughts, it creates like an artificial body. It's composed of some sort of exotic matter, and
Hmm.
real entities that are sentient can come along and possess it. There is a legend of a tulpa that was created in a Tibetan monastery, or a Tibetan place where they had their temples,
Right.
and this tulpa ended up losing weight and becoming sentient and sort of doing its own thing. And it would wander around the temple. At first, they created it and it actually did chores for them, but then it got a mind of its own and lost weight. It changed its appearance and started doing its own thing. So it probably got possessed, is my
Well,
theory
there,
on
there
that
there
one.
was this lady called Alexandra David Neal around the turn of the century. She was one of these women that she snuck. At one time Tibet was a forbidden place. You could not go into that
Yeah,
country.
right.
If you're a foreigner, I mean, she snuck in there disguised as a monk. She had like the equivalent of a Sherpa,
Uh-huh.
you know, and they trekked in there, and she kind of snuck in there, like basically just like, and she studied. She went all over the Orient, and she studied all these different mystical um, practices. But she did that thing with the tulpa, and she said she started to imagine like a little monk. She says that
Mm-hmm.
eventually it got it, like you said. Then other people started seeing it,
Mm-hmm.
and it started getting away from her. In other words, it started to develop and do its own thing.
Yeah.
So she got to the point. She goes, "I gotta stop it. I gotta like undo
Yeah.
this,
Shut it down. Shut it
shut
down.
it down,
Yeah. And
because
and
this
it could
thing was
be that.
acting of its own on its own."
Yeah, it could be that the energy of thought can actually give sentience if you put enough cognitive energy into it. But I think it's more likely that something's coming along and saying, "Ooh, here's a battery,
Yes,
I'm going to plug in."
exactly.
Um, Astral projection is another explanation of what a ghost might be. There might be people astral projecting and not even knowing it. There's a story about this lady who kept having these dreams of this house, and she'd be wandering around this house and she just knew the floor plan of the house, and she was telling her husband about it, and they were looking for a house at the time.
Mhm.
And so like they just first assumed that we've been looking for houses all over the place, and you're just thinking about it so much that you got this dream house in your head, right?
Right.
But then they're driving along one day and she's like, "Stop the car." And they stop in front of this house, and she's like, "That's the house. I
Okay.
know the floor plan of that house. I know what's in the backyard. I know what's in every room of that house." And she's like, I got to talk to the people. We have to buy this house. This is the dream house. And it was for sale too, right?
Wow.
There's a for sale sign in front. So they get out and they go up to knock on the door. The people are home. Lady opens the door and she like looks at the woman standing there and she freaks, like white as a sheet, and slams the door. So it takes a little while, but they managed to get the lady to talk to them, to open the door, talk to them, and she said that this lady had been in their house scaring the crap out of everybody in the middle of the night and at all times of the
Wow.
day, and she would just like vanish in front of people.
She
And
was the ghost.
that's why they were selling the house, because it was scaring the crap out of them.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
So there's that. Then there's alternate dimensions, parallel realities, alternate timelines. Now here, I don't know if I mentioned this story, but my sister had an experience that kind of goes into this category. This could be time traveler, ET, ghost, portal, dimension, something. We don't know what category this falls into.
Okay.
My sister used to live for a short period of time, I think maybe 6 months to a year. She got a job as a caretaker on an island in the middle of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
So the Mississippi River is so big that in this particular place, the island was 5 miles wide and 8 miles long.
Wow.
And the river's pretty wide on both sides of the island too.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to take a ferry to get there. There was no electricity. It was completely off grid. No phone, no electricity. And we got to go visit her once in the wintertime. Well, no, it wasn't winter. No, we went and we rode the ferry there, and then they had a little tractor with a trailer, and we would sit on the bales of hay, and then they would put the trailer back, and they were in a shack in the middle of the island down on the south. It was in the center, and then further on, like on the northern side of the island.
Okay.
And they were next to this hunting lodge, and that was, they were caretakers of the lodge, and it wasn't hunting season most of the year. But they had to take care of the lodge, make sure everything was good to go. It wasn't just left fallow if, something happened to it during the rainy season or snowy. It would snow there too sometimes. And there was one other guy on this entire island, and he was way over on the north side of the island, over 5 miles away. So needless to say, they never got visitors.
I bet.
Extremely isolated, and enough to make you kind of lose your marbles. I mean, that's why she left. It's like she at first she liked it though. It's like, oh, this is awesome. I get to be here and commune with nature.
Right.
Her and her husband are there one night. Her husband's on the couch in the living room cleaning his rifle, and suddenly the front door opens and a guy walks in, and he's like, that we don't get visitors, right?
And but I mean, is this a stranger or is this the guy that's on the other side of the island?
It is not the guy on the other side of the island.
Oh, okay.
This is a young blonde-haired guy wearing some kind of military-looking type uniform.
Okay.
He didn't want to, James, my brother-in-law, didn't want to say like necessarily it was Civil War for sure. It was military, sort of military type uniform, and he did notice his shoes were spotless. In fact, his entire uniform, not wet, it was flawless. Very nice. And his shoes were shiny, like sparkly shiny, like he just did a spit polish on those suckers.
Okay.
And the behavior of the guy is what's interesting. He was sentient. He walked in and he's like looking around and like, what is this? And he looks at James and he gets this goofy smile on his face, like, and then he waves, turns around, walks out, and shuts the door.
What?
My sister was in the kitchen when it happened, and she sensed something was off. and she poked her
Okay.
head around the corner just in time to see his pants leg go through the door and shut the door. And she looked at James, and he was just in shock.
Oh.
And she's like, "What was that?" James leaps off the couch, gun parts going everywhere. He runs over to the door, tries to open it. It's locked. It's bolt locked.
Okay.
He undoes the locks and shoves the door open. The dogs on the front porch are laying in front of the door against the door.
Wow.
And he has to shove the dogs out of the way, and he's looking around. It's nighttime. It's snowing. There's mud on the ground, no footprints. Snow, you'd have been able to see.
Yes,
There was
of
nothing.
course.
That guy just gone.
He disappeared.
He came back in, and my sister fell on the ground and started crying. And my sister doesn't cry. She's seen some really freaky stuff in her life, messing with Ouija board when she was a kid, and it flew across the room, and different stuff that my sister experienced. But this totally wigged her out, and they had no idea what it was. The weirdest thing about it, though, was his behavior. It was almost like a cosmic mistake had been made.
Like, oops, I'm in the wrong room.
He meant to go somewhere else, maybe a different time. Could have went to go change the course of the Civil War, for example. A lot of Civil War activity was fought on that island. You can go and pry.
Well, I was going to ask you, since this island, I mean,
yeah,
did they
It was a highly contested strategic place.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of fighting there. Another day that they were there, they heard an explosion and the ground vibrated, and they didn't know what the hell that was.
And let's face it, this is an island. It's like,
yeah. So this person could have been from like another dimension or something like that. He looked physical, like a physical flesh and blood dude.
Right. It wasn't none of that fuzzy see-through thing.
Right. Okay. So category number 5, actual spirits of the deceased. Okay. The traditional thought of what a ghost is. Okay. I think that that's real because the Bible talks about Abel's blood crying out from the earth. And in Leviticus, it says the life of the flesh is in the blood. So if you take that translation, you read the life of Abel's flesh has cried out from the ground. So that's a ghost in the traditional sense of what we think a ghost is. As a kid, I had seen demons before.
Really? How do you know? Let me ask you this. How did you know they were demons? Did they look like demons or what?
They were about 2.5 feet long or so, 2.5 to 3 feet long, semi-transparent, green and semi-transparent. And they had these 2 black holes for eyes and this black frown of a mouth.
Okay.
And they were swarming all over the room. And when I woke up in the middle of the night, they saw me and they swooped up into my face and they projected terror.
Were you the only one that saw them?
Yes. They felt extremely hideous, evil.
Okay.
They loved to inflict the fear on me, and all I could do was close my eyes. And they also had the ability to paralyze me. I tried to get out of the bed. I couldn't move.
Okay.
I tried to yell to my brother on the other side of the room.
Right. I was about to ask you, did you have any of your siblings in the room with you?
Yeah. All that came out was, I couldn't yell.
Okay.
It just, this really light whisper came out. And I periodically opened my eyes. And every time I did, they'd see me and swoop down, and I'd have to close my eyes again and keep testing. Can I move? Can I move? I wanted to get up and turn the light on.
Right.
I was paralyzed all night, awake and terrified all night until the first light of dawn came into the room and their numbers started to diminish. And then finally, when the first bit of real light entered the room from the sun, they were all gone. And I was able to finally move. So I know that I didn't dream it because I was awake all night in absolute terror. So those were actual real demons. And I saw them. But then there's actual ghosts, like Abel. He was not bad. What's the reason for that? Why would God even allow that? Well, my theory is that ghosts serve the purpose of being beacons of injustice. They're known as
Okay.
the ground is cursed. Spilt blood from
Okay.
killing, from murder, will curse the
Mm-hmm.
ground. That
Sure.
thins the veil, and the underworld can it, like creates a portal, and beings from the underworld can come into this realm through these portals where you have cursed ground. Um,
So
it
you're
allow
basically
and it,
saying that the violence or whatever that, let's say, happened, let's say, on a piece of land,
yes,
basically it makes it like a portal, or it's easier for it to become a portal for
it's
these things.
easier. Yes, it's porous and things can
Okay.
come through. So the purpose of this is, first of all, there shouldn't have been a killing, and
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be rectified, and it shouldn't be concealed. The
Okay.
truth must be revealed. And
Okay.
so that creates this legal argument for these beings who were unjustly murdered to cry out for justice.
Right.
And that's what happened with Abel. And I think that's what happens with other people. And they're good spirits in some cases, and something
Mm-hmm.
terrible happened to them. But the also side effect of that is that because the veil is here, or the veil is thin there, other things can come through as well.
I see.
So I think that that might be what's happening there. But then there's also the good version of that, like my great
Mm-hmm.
grandmother, when grandpa came to visit her, I think he came from heaven. And
Right.
so there was a portal of a good kind. And here's another interesting thing that I tend to see this trend with curses.
Mm-hmm.
You look into the past, and these recording phenomenon tend to look at something that happened in the past to expose it, to reveal the truth. Such
Okay.
as a murder that happened in the past, right?
Sure.
So curses look into the past. Blessings and holy ground looks into the future. And I think that that's why people who were like the prophets of old, holy men, would tend to see into the future. Um, or if they had angelic visitations,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times those would be accompanied with a prophetic vision ability to see things to come. So that's
Well, let
just
me
it.
let me ask you something, because I tell people, there's so many crimes that sometimes never get recognized. Even here nowadays of serial killers, they have dumping grounds,
Mm-hmm,
and some of them are discovered, but I think there's a lot of them that never are.
right,
You know, they're desolate, and finally, there's really nothing left to find, kind of deal.
right.
Um,
But I guarantee you, those dumping grounds are majorly haunted.
I'm sure
Um,
they are. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
you go to places where there's a lot of killing and bloodshed. They're not good places, and you can even get sick being there.
Let me ask you,
Um,
since you were in the
yeah,
military, what do you think of battlefields?
uh, they are generally haunted. Um,
Okay.
I, some of the best ghost photography ever conducted was the
Mm-hmm.
Battle of Gettysburg, where that
Oh,
was
yes.
fought. Um,
Yes.
you could see them walking around. Probably if you went there tonight with a camcorder, you could catch it, or your cell phone these days.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen them like walking around a cannon and different things. And part of what aids it is that they leave a lot of the original stuff there with all that
Right.
energy associated with it. And I think that energy just makes it easier for them to manifest. And these are like mostly recordings. Um, when they were making the movie, um, Gettysburg, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
uh, there's a famous story that goes with that movie. And I read it in a book. So the author probably vetted it out pretty good, I'd like to think.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the actors, they're all dressed in their Civil War outfit and had blood on them and stuff. And very realistic, right? And they stopped shooting and they went to take a break, and they went over to this rock and they had their sandwiches and stuff on the rock. And um, this dude comes through the brush off to the side because they were in this clearing where the main battle was fought. And they thought he was one of the actors. And he came stumbling up to him, and they're like, "Oh, he's acting it out really good. And he looks hurt, and his leg was shot."
Okay.
And he said, "Oh man, keep it up, keep up the fight." And he reaches into his pocket and he pulled out a few musket balls, and he says, I have a few to spare. And he held out his hand, and they're like, okay. And one of the actors put his hand out, and the guy dropped the musket balls into his hand and then disappeared right in front of him. They even smelled the guy's stench.
Right.
They were like,
Exactly.
man, this dude went off. He even made
It's
sure
like,
not to
man,
take a
he's
shower.
into that part, all right.
Method acting to a new level, man. And then he just vanished right in front of them. And they took the musket balls to town and had them looked at by a museum, and they said, yeah, they're genuine.
From what I
That's an interesting
understand,
story. Kind of makes you think that
that
maybe
that that that
even
must have been like
created some kind of a portal, not
probably ended that meal.
necessarily just a ghost, but actually a portal that had so much
Right, solid
residual
enough that
energy.
they thought it was a real person that was
And yeah,
walking up to
and
them.
maybe he did wander through a portal that was created because of that energy, and passed some physical matter through the portal and then vanished. So there's a lot of interesting things going on here. And then like category number 6 is transdimensional entities. And I already mentioned Bigfoot. Probably told, I don't know if I told my story, Bigfoot story of a friend of mine
No, go
who
ahead.
lived in Arkansas, that when he was a kid, he and some friends were dropped off in the woods to hunt and, stay overnight in the woods. And then one of them's dad came back to get him the next day. They were going to go hunting for deer. And he shot the deer, and the brush was so thick. He was like, man, you guys are going to try, if we all went together to the other side of that ridge to get it, we probably wouldn't find it. The brush is too thick in here, but I could see where I hit it from here. So I'll stay here, I'll keep it in my scope, and I'll navigate you guys to it. While the other guys were making their way to it, they heard him screaming up a storm. And when they got back, they're like, we didn't find nothing. And he said, yeah, you were like 10 foot away from this thing that grabbed the buck. He said he was looking through the scope and something stepped into the picture, grabbed the antlers, flipped that whole 700-pound buck over his shoulder like it was a rag doll, and stepped into the brush and disappeared. And they were like 10, 15 feet away from it. And they didn't see it. And he's like, how in the hell could you not see that? It was huge. And they're like, well, was it a bear? And he didn't want to say what it was.
Right, like,
But, it grabbed a buck and flung it over his
right.
shoulder and left. So they were like, yeah, Bigfoot, obviously. They decided to hunt it because he got pissed. He's like, that was a 12-point buck.
Right.
Let's split up into 2 teams of 2 and look for our buck. It couldn't have gone far with that. They're heavy. They hunted around. They smelled this horrible skunk smell on and off. They were hearing footsteps all around them, and this thing was just messing with them. When they got back to their camp, they had all their food hoisted up into a tree and in a net, and the net was slashed open. Something had climbed the tree with these claws and slashed the net. They had cans of beans that were ripped open in half.
Wow.
And eaten. And they're like, this is the damnedest, weirdest looking bear I ever saw could do something like that.
Exactly.
And so they decided to stay awake at night, too scared to go to sleep. They were going to do shifts, right? One guy on guard duty. Around midnight, the one guy that's on guard duty, he got this big bonfire going. He's got to do number 2. He's like, well, I don't want to do it right here next to the fire. That'd be uncool,
Right.
But I don't want to go too far away either. So he grabbed his rifle. Everything's ready. He's ready to shoot and everything. And he goes over to a tree and around the corner of the tree, and he leans the rifle against the tree, drops his pants, and he's going. And right at the most vulnerable point, suddenly this thing is right in front of him. Like,
let me tell you.
How does something 800 pounds, 900 pounds
I think they're just really good at camouflage and just being real still. I think that they're masters of that.
Well, this thing was just suddenly right in front of him. And it was looking down at him. And before he could grab the weapon, it lightning fast reached down, grabbed the rifle, snatched it up, snapped it in half like a twig, and slammed both pieces of the rifle down. And guy's like, okay, Bigfoot's pissed.
I'm
Um,
toast.
this thing was really upset that
Right.
they came, they
Uh-huh.
killed the buck, which might have been his friend for all they knew.
Yeah.
Um, and then they had the audacity to try to hunt him, and he was pissed. And so he
Mm-hmm.
made his presence known. He could have just pinched this guy's head and killed him.
Yeah.
He could have done it with one hand, just grip him and killed him. This thing was so strong. But it snapped the rifle, kind of like, this is my home. And then it took like one step and then was gone. And so the way the guy described it, this thing was like walking all around him and stuff, and they could smell it and everything, but it's like it was invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads me to believe that the Bigfoot might have been a kind of Nephilim. So according to the book of Jasher, and then lightly touched on in the book of Enoch, the Nephilim, which were these angel hybrids, also crossed with animals. And that is why when people talk about seeing demons, they talk
Mm-hmm.
about things, they describe them as looking like chimeras a lot of the time, like part human characteristic, part animal character.
Right.
This person with bat wings,
Mm-hmm.
horns, tails, scales, but a human face,
Right.
all kinds of bizarre descriptions of what demons look like, and they're chimeras, and that's because these fallen angels were crossing with all kinds of animals. They were actually living physical creatures at one time,
Mm-hmm.
and then they died, and their ghosts are now demons. The Hebrew word Raphaim, translates as giant and also shades or spirits. Same exact word.
Okay.
So you can look in the Hebrew
Interesting.
there and say, oh, where did demons come from? Did God create them? Nope. Fallen angels created them through reverting to their former reproductive state. When angels, I believe, were born like us, reproductive, and
Okay.
then they go through a translation, just like we will in the future. Those who are saved will be translated into this higher non-reproductive nation, non-reproductive state of being, where we'll be glorified. We'll have
Right.
abilities, and we'll be like the angels, as Jesus said in Luke 2:36, 20:36. So if angels, if we're going to be like the angels, then maybe the angels used to be like us. They used to be reproductive.
Yeah.
That's why these angels, these fallen angels in Genesis 6, they started turning away from God. They started reverting to a former nature, and then women started looking attractive to them. Because that was another thing that I saw in Genesis 6 when I first started reading the Bible. I'm like, why would an angel, a totally non-reproductive being, even be attracted to a human? It doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense. There's no biological understanding for that. And, to make sense out of it from a biological scientific perspective, they used to be reproductive. Jesus didn't
Right.
say they don't ever reproduce. He just said they don't, because they were translated. He didn't say they didn't used to. And so
Right.
I think that they were just like us in that they translated. And so when you get this reversion, where they revert to a former state of being, and then they're sinning by recrossing with animals and humans and creating all of these creatures, and then they're just naturally bent on evil, their offspring. And
Mm-hmm.
the Bigfoot, though, I don't think he's entirely bad. And I think that there might be some of these creatures out there that are like these hybrids, that
Right.
maybe they've diluted themselves out, recrossing, reproducing with animals or something like that over
Right.
time, that they have less and less of that, and there might be a way for them to be saved. I mean, I've even debated that, like, because the book of Enoch goes into detail about these fallen angels wanting to get back into God's good grace, and they're all talking to
Right.
Enoch, like, hey, put in a good word for us, and God said, no, no, you blew it. And then the fact that you're asking for that while you're doing all this other stuff and polluting the genetics of the world
Right.
and trying to destroy the planet and everything I created here, no. So most of them are bad, but maybe there's some good ones out there. I don't know.
Right. Well, and I've also heard that maybe in some cases, let's say with the Bigfoot is like a kind of like an experiment. it didn't go the way they wanted, and they just
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, all
Well, the
right.
legends of Bigfoot are ancient, though, well beyond
You
our,
know,
before we were messing with genetics. Nowadays,
right.
though,
Well, but
yeah,
I don't mean
sure.
recent. I mean as in ETs or something. You know,
Oh,
going
oh,
to
okay.
ET that they were
Yeah,
kind of fooling around, like an island of Dr. Moreau kind of deal.
right. So the
Um,
Nephilim angle is one angle, and the fact that Bigfoot seems to maybe have supernatural stealth abilities
yes,
is lends credit to that. However, there's also this other category of entities. It could be that there's this whole wide range of transdimensional entities that
sure.
God created, part of God's natural creation.
Right.
Now, descriptions that I've heard of these entities called elementals, most of those
Yes.
sound like they're demons. They
Right.
don't. The stories associated with elementals usually doesn't sound like a benevolent nature spirit.
No, they're not. They're not
They're
human. They're
usually
not
pretty
human,
mean.
and yeah,
Um,
yes, yes.
but but I don't think that it's impossible for there to be a good one. What I encountered in the jungle of Panama could have killed me. That ball
I
of
think
light.
that that they're kind of indifferent to us unless we start messing around with them. You know,
Maybe.
kind of like I'll just ignore you because I really don't understand you, and like leave them alone. I think
It's
that
like an animal, like a curious
right,
animal. The
yeah,
one that I encountered kind of struck me as that, although it was pretty intelligent to get into my head and transmit its location to me.
mm-hmm.
Uh, let me know where it was at, even when it was invisible. I felt it moving around. I'm like, that
Okay,
was a communication. It was telepathically communicating to me. So, uh, from my Dungeons and Dragons days, I knew I memorized the
do
monster
you think
manual,
that
the
it
deities.
was what was
Might have
it?
been a
Was
will
it
o' the
an
wisp.
elemental for that particular area of the jungle, or
hmm I think
okay,
it might have been a will o' the wisp. If you read
okay,
about the legend of the will o' the wisp, um, but it also could have been an ET, like a probe or something like that. I do believe that what
mm-hmm.
it was sentient,
Okay,
because I felt its presence, and it was like, hey, I'm here,
okay,
and I'm alive, and I'm watching you. And that
okay,
feeling of being watched, it projected it, and that's how I
right.
knew where it was at. It was projecting its awareness of me, and made me aware of it, even though it was invisible during those times while it was moving around. Then it would flash, and I knew, like, it would move around, and I'm like looking right where I knew it was going to flash, and then it would flash. So
Do you
that's how
think
I knew it was
it was
communicating.
it curious about you, or did it just want you to go away, or was it trying to warn you, like leave?
I think it was checking us out. It went straight to our position from, like,
Okay.
800 meters out in the jungle, and it came straight to our position. And
Mm-hmm.
then it stopped
Okay.
until I went out, and I'm like, doing my "We people of Earth, we come in peace." I was playing James T. Kirk, First Contact, right?
Uh-huh.
I was
Right.
loving it. My team leader was freaking out though. He was screaming at me, and I'm like, "Hey, you give me a direct order all you want, but who gets a first contact experience? I'm not passing this up. I will disobey a direct order to do that." Um, and he finally hushed up. He's like, "Well, okay, don't be surprised if the thing kills you." And I
Yeah.
said, "It could have killed me already." And I had the M60 on. I'm like, "Well, I better take that off. Doesn't look good on the optics
You
seeing
know,
my
we
king
come
of
in
peace
peace,
wearing
but
an
yeah, you're armed.
M60, 750 rounds of ammunition ready to unload." So I'm like, "No, I disarmed myself." And he's like, "You dumbass." And I'm like, "If it wanted to kill me, it would have already." So I don't think that was a bad thing. It was. It just since, and it did a whole perimeter sweep, went around, flashing on and off as it went, all the way around at 360 degrees, and then it went down to the jungle and did the same thing to the two other positions down in the jungle. So it was acting like a probe,
Okay.
or a scout, like
Okay.
checking us out. Like, what are you doing out
Yes.
here? What are you all about? What's going on? Well, why are you in my jungle? People don't stay
Mm-hmm.
out here. It's an inhospitable place. You're nuts being out
Yes.
here.
Let me ask you
So
something. Was it like far from any village? It was like literally in the middle of nowhere?
it was behind Fort Sherman,
Okay.
a military base. They didn't bother to put a fence on the base because the jungle was filled with deadly snakes and spiders,
Okay.
and the ground moved with ants. There was
Oh,
literally this one area that was like probably a good um, 500 square feet where the ground was moving. And I would
Oh.
say it was a carpet of ants about 2 inches thick. And you could not walk through there. If you did, ants would immediately just swarm up on you and eat you alive. And like if you got paralyzed or something happened to you, you got hurt and you fell down on that, you would probably
That's it.
die from ant venom. They were big ass red ants, so it was bad
Let me
news.
ask you this. I
Bad.
know there's a type of ant. Oh my God, I can't remember what they have them in South and Central America that when they come through, basically everything flees before it because they'll eat everything.
Oh yeah, these were clearing out portions of the jungle, and it was mating season, so they were flying on top of it.
Okay. All
and
right.
I had my body coated with bug juice, and those things would jump on my arm and be like, you know, they loved it. They didn't care. You could put all the bug juice you wanted. They would, you know, drink it like it was a beer.
It's like that. Well, we don't get. Yeah, exactly.
And
It
then they
makes you
had
feel better.
spiders as big as my hand, and they weren't tarantulas. That's just the bugs. The plants, it had spikes and thorns, and then there would be sticky plants that touch you, and your skin would start burning. The plants were inhospitable. The insects were inhospitable. It was like 95% humidity and
Yeah.
hot and raining a good chunk of the time, like at least 50% of the time. And then there were like these pits. They had snakes out there. Bushmaster. A bushmaster chased these guys through the jungle like a couple hundred yards
Really?
before it finally stopped chasing them. They had panthers. The base had its own zoo
So I was
of
gonna say,
animals.
yeah, I see now why they didn't need a fence. Like it's like, all right.
Yeah, it had its own zoo of animals, and we had our training of like, here's what to be careful for out here in the jungle,
Right.
all of these creatures and stuff, and then okay, so have fun tonight. You know, you're gonna sleep out there, and so we had to sleep out in these positions in the middle of that inhospitable, horrific place. But I
Okay.
found something. I encountered something out there that wasn't in their zoo, and
What was
and
that?
that ball of light. You know, I'm
Oh,
like,
okay. I was
it's
gonna
a
say, what
very
other animal?
diverse ecosystem out
Let me
here.
ask you
Even
something. Did you ever ask around to see if anybody had ever seen that before, or were you guys the first ones?
no, I didn't ask around because of what happened. So the next day, nobody's saying anything.
Uh, okay.
And so I already had a reputation as being a weirdo.
Okay.
My room had all these paranormal books, you know, dream interpretation. I had a deck of tarot cards and a crystal ball and all this stuff. Like I said, I was all into this new age stuff.
That's so
Book,
funny.
book on astral projection, you know, all this. And then I was my main group of friends that I hung out with played Dungeons and Dragons together, right?
Right. Okay.
And so they knew that I was like not at all your typical army grunt. And I was the brunt of many jokes. But on that night, my corporal was on my turf. And so I
Okay.
got to turn the tables on him and be like, you know, dude, you know, no, this is not a laser. This is not some kind of technology. And, you know, lasers require a straight line of sight. There's no way aircraft carrier out in the Gulf is. He was speculating, right? Oh, maybe it's a laser from
Right.
the aircraft.
Right.
You know, laser floating around down here in the trees is completely invisible. I have AMPVS 7 night vision goggles. You ain't seeing
Right.
nothing with these. So, no, this is a sentient entity, and I am going to communicate with it. And he was freaking out. So the next day, I'm like, okay, Corporal Stinger, what was that? Should we report it? He's like, he didn't say anything, and everybody's just kind of quiet. And I'm like, well, I know that you guys had to see it too. And I'm like, William, it went straight towards your position. It was this glowing ball of light. And it communicated to me. Corporal Stinger was right here. He saw the whole damn thing. Corporal Stinger wasn't saying anything. And then when he's like, might have seen like a firefly or something. Like,
Oh.
firefly? We've been seeing fireflies the whole time we've been here. You know, the little
Right.
tiny little green things about the size of my pinky nail, you know?
Right.
This was the size of a soccer ball. It was pure electricity, and it was so bright when it flashed, you could probably see it for a half mile. It light up the whole
Nobody
jungle.
wanted to be they were like,
And then I'm like, what about you, Romero? And he's like looking at me. He's like, no, might have seen something. That's all I could get out of him. And then
uh-huh.
I'm trying to pry it out of him, and I'm like, come on, what the hell? And then my corporal says, well, I know what it was. And everybody looked at him. It was like a E.F. Hutton moment. All quiet, like, all eyes on my corporal, and he's like, Milor summoned it. And then they all started laughing. It's like, oh yeah, he's out here all casting
Yeah,
spells. Where's his cauldron? Where's his spell book? He brought
right.
that
Now
stuff
it's all
by.
your fault.
And they started making fun of me, and they turned it into a roast session that went on for like 15 minutes straight. They just wouldn't shut up, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I dropped it, because those guys knew how to tear you down and
I
wear
bet.
you on. I couldn't escape them. I mean, they were depriving us of sleep at the time, and we weren't eating good, and we weren't sleeping good, and
So you're like,
morale was
okay.
at an all-time low. And so I'm already just like, you know what? Just seeing that increased my morale. So I'm just going to leave it at that and let these idiots just do their thing and leave it alone with that. But uh, and even to this day, I made friends with one of the guys on Facebook, right? And I'm like, dude, you were
Right.
there that night. What did you see? He didn't say nothing back. And I'm like, serious, man. Even now, you don't want to. What the hell, man? So
But no,
it would
yes.
be fun to find my corporal. I know his name. I even have his social security number because we had orders and they would just hand out social security numbers like candy back then.
But you
But
know what it is
he
that
was a
I
truck
think,
driver that lived in Michigan, and I'd love to be able to track him down one of these days. But I
you know
mean,
what I
I'm
think
a
it is that, I mean, it's not really admitting it to you. Is if they really started like talking about it, it's like, okay,
that really
if that
was real.
exists, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I don't know how to incorporate that into my sense of reality, so I would
yes,
rather just push it aside and pretend it didn't
yes,
happen.
yes, yes. The that's gonna mess with my world. This is the world I operate in, and stuff like that doesn't exist in my world. And if I talk
Exactly.
about it,
Hmm.
then guess what?
You're
And then the
you're.
thing is this: well, if that exists, then what else is out there
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
supposedly is
as
like,
if the jungle is not inhospitable enough.
sure,
We have to
exactly,
encounter something from another world. Uh,
yes,
that
yes,
and I've seen enough shows about there's this whole classification of orbs, right?
hmm,
Um, but this wasn't just some sort of semi-transparent thing. This thing was like extremely powerful. It was
well, if you're
pure
telling me it's like the size of
electricity,
a soccer ball, that's like,
and
wow,
and pure like imagine the light on a camera,
hmm,
and as bright as a camera flash and in flashing, because it would blind you if you were looking at it. You couldn't
that's
see for
pretty
like
bright.
30 seconds, and it was extremely bright, and it gave me the impression that it was made out of electricity, like, and it probably could have electrocuted and killed us. But it
Wow,
wasn't ball lightning, because I read about that. Ball lightning zips around erratically. It doesn't like
hmm,
hover and then flash on and off intermittently.
right,
It's a ball of light that's consistent and zips around and then hits something. I had a radio next to me, a field radio,
okay,
with a 6-foot whip antenna and a battery, a backpack full of lithium batteries. And then
okay,
I also had my M60, a big chunk of metal. So there's two lightning attractors right there. And the thing was
hmm,
like in front of me. It moved straight to my position and stopped instead of grounding out. If it
hmm.
was ball lightning, it would have grounded out. So yeah, I,
Right.
I
No, it
uh, went,
doesn't.
yeah, it was alive, and it was checking us out. And that's what I explained to everybody. And then they were just making fun of me of it. So I'm like, okay,
I
well,
mean,
I guess, that was just for me, I guess.
was there any, you might not know, or maybe not, was that location close to any like ancient, like Mesoamerican, so how they have these ancient
Maybe.
cities
It's
that
hard to
sometimes,
tell because the
right,
jungle grew in over everything, right?
right,
So, but
exactly.
there were areas where I saw large blocks covered with
Okay.
vines.
Yes.
However, This was next to the Panama Canal.
Okay.
They were batteries. Well, they called them batteries. These big concrete structures that they built
Mm-hmm.
when they were digging the Panama Canal by hand.
Okay.
And there were tunnels that went down to the Panama Canal in
Okay.
these abandoned batteries. And the special forces were actually out there in the jungle, and they had taken over one of these batteries and refurbished it, and they lived out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Because I
it's
know
kind
that.
of interesting. It looked like an ancient city in a way because all these vines and stuff covering these. I have some pictures of it. Of some of them that were abandoned, and we went in there. And but there were other areas where there were like large blocks that could have been concrete, could have been carved stone, and they were like covered with vines and stuff.
Because a lot of them, they've discovered them now with the satellite imagery that
Mm-hmm.
they're basically
Oh yeah.
discovering them.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
And this was near the Caribbean Sea. There was a cliff that we actually
mm-hmm.
went to. There was a
Okay.
obstacle course out there actually that we went on.
Okay.
A really harsh obstacle course, and this net that was about 100 feet long that went over this cliff. Very dangerous. And you could climb down the net, which we did. And then there was this flat area that was like a couple hundred yards where you could just walk, and the water was maybe a couple inches deep. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the Caribbean Sea, and you're looking out over the
Okay.
Caribbean Sea. And in those batteries, they had these tunnels, these man-made tunnels that went down. And I was curious, and I looked in one, and I asked my team leader, I'm like, I want to explore that tunnel. And he's like, you're crazy enough to go in there? It could be a tiger, and or
Right.
panther. We knew there were panthers because they had a
Uh-huh.
panther in the zoo, and I think panther's basically just a mountain lion that's black. But
Right, like a jaguar,
yeah,
where they have, yeah. If you look
yeah,
at them, you can still see the rosettes on them that you normally
puma,
see,
panther, mountain
and
lion,
then they have
same
that
cat.
dark thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not solid
So
black.
I'm like, that's okay. I got an let me borrow an M60 or an M16. I don't want an
And you went
M60.
in there?
I went in there,
Oh boy.
and
Okay.
I going in, and then I pull out my flashlight, and I'm going, and I noticed that the roof of this little tunnel looked strange, like this clumpy stuff. And I first thought it was like moss, uh, but it looked more like a dark colored fur. And I'm looking, and it was bats, thousands of them, all
Oh my God.
all covering the ceiling of this tunnel. Oh crap! What would happen if I scared these bats?
Oh
Thousands of bats would be trying to get out of this tunnel. It'd probably get
yes,
me all cut up, maybe bite me or something. And then
yes,
I can't shoot an M16 at a bat. Thousands, it's totally ineffective. This is not going to work. So I
yeah,
did an about face. So I only went in like 15, 20 feet, and then, like, and I think the tunnel just would eventually went down until it filled with water because it was going down to the Panama Canal. They used these
yes.
where like they were taking shovels full of dirt, and then they would take them
Right. I
out
was
with
going to
shovels.
ask you, is this basically how they were taking the dirt out from?
I think that's what they used them for.
Okay.
And they just abandoned all of that stuff there. But the batteries that were there, they're not a battery like you charge, but they call them batteries that like bunker type things. They were reinforced concrete bunkers built in there with rooms and stuff. And those were kind of interesting, just these abandoned structures out
That's
there.
yeah. That this place became like a bat house.
Yeah, that was a bat house, and I was like, no, no, thank you. Very interesting, the jungle, um, and
Well, yeah.
that
There's a lot
encounter.
of stuff that again, I think, like I said, some of the stuff they're finding them now because satellite imagery, because everything is
Hmm.
overgrown. People, I tell everybody, my God, even now here, I live in not the jungle, but vegetation grows exponentially. When you get
Yeah,
heat and rain, forget it. It
yeah,
doesn't take long before things get covered up. And
and then the the last category of ghosts that I was going to mention is a phenomenon called retro recognition, which I could have mentioned it in some of the things that I was talking
like
about
a
because
deja vu
they
kind of thing.
some of these things bleed over. Retro recognition is where it's kind of like the veil gets thin, but rather than like
Mhm.
the underworld or the divine realm, it's parallel dimensions, alternate realities, or
Okay.
seeing into the past, seeing into the future. I mean, there's
Hmm.
accounts of people like they would walk into a room and things look different in the room, and they look outside and they see old stagecoach looking cars driving by, and Horses out on the street, and they're like, what the heck?
Yes.
Why are people dressed like that? And they turn around and they walk out the room, and everything's normal outside of the room.
Yeah,
And then
like
they
a
go
time
back in the
slip kind
room.
of deal.
Yeah, a time slip. And retrorecognition could be like portals that somebody you can maybe view through into the past. Usually you don't pass into the past, but there have
Mm-hmm.
been people that have straight up vanished.
Yes.
Mount Shasta here in California is known for that.
Oh wow, God,
There
Mount
was there
Shasta.
was a story of a guy that was with a friend of his who was just ahead of him by maybe 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Big slope, flat, rocks, no trees, nothing to hide behind, just this flat terrain going up the side of the mountain. And he stopped, reached over, took a drink of water, and looked in front, and his friend was gone. And he
Right.
never saw him again. And he's like, if you fell, it's not like you're
Exactly.
not going to be noticed or not going to be heard. And, some people say, well, maybe he fell and rolled all the way down. And they're like, well, no, it's
Mm-hmm.
for starters, not steep enough here for that to even happen. He would just fall. I would see him.
Right. It's not like he's on the cliffs and it's like he
But
fell
if
off
he
the cliff.
fell, I would have seen him going. There was,
Right. Or at least heard the
over 1,000 yards of space on every way that you can see. How did the guy manage to disappear so quickly? And he went up there and searched the area. Like, is there a hole in the ground? Did he fall through it? And
right.
no, he was just gone. And not just him. There's a place in New Mexico too where they have these cave dwellings. And
Mm-hmm.
this lady and her husband went there, and the husband vanished. And he was just, a couple yards away, just went around a corner and gone. And then people were like, well, no, he probably just used that as an excuse and ditched her, and went off and changed his identity and all this. But
Right.
the lady's like, he would not do that. You don't
Right.
know him. I know him. He would not
Yeah.
do that to me. And they would take equipment there. They took equipment. That was one of the places they
Mm-hmm.
took spectrometers and electromagnetic meters and things like that. And there are spikes all over the place in that area. They're like, something's creating a lot of electromagnetic energy here. This place is a huge magnet.
You
And
hear about
like,
all these disappearances, and I want to say the
mm-hmm.
national parks. And like there's some that are more than others, like Yosemite and like Mount Shasta.
Yeah,
That in that very
400
same
Liggett.
description.
400 Liggett was like that. We did exercises there at 400 Liggett because I was at Fort Ord for 2 years when it was still around,
Mm-hmm.
and we would go up to 400 Liggett, which is not too far away. Used to be the property of Hearst Castle and have exotic
Okay.
animals there, tigers and zebras and stuff back a long time
Mm-hmm.
ago. But now it's a military base, and they say that a meteor struck there a long time ago
Okay.
because that base is particularly nice to do land navigation. They like to send you there to learn how to do land navigation because your compasses will just sometimes float around.
Okay. Interesting.
It's like,
Like,
now find where you're at.
right. If your
You better
compass
be pretty
stops
darn good.
working, how are you going to get to where you're going? Whatever.
Exactly. And I've been on many problems where, a 5-mile march turns into a 20-mile march because of that. So,
Which is
but
supposedly what happens in the Bermuda Triangle, but that's another story.
yeah, exactly. And so that would be another place where you got these portal things going on. Maybe you could, and with a portal, it's possible you could see into other dimensions, but maybe also through time,
Yes.
forward in time, back in time. In some places, the portals are so strong, which I defined in this book. This
Mm-hmm.
is part 4 of the Jimmy Prophet series, where he learns about portals. And there's
Right.
type 1 portal, type 2 portal, type 3 portal. A type 1 portal, only spiritual energy like exotic matter can go through it, like ghosts and stuff. Like the thinning of a veil when you see a murder. That's a type 1 portal.
Let me ask you, do you think that some of these ETs basically they travel? You know how people think of light years, but
Oh
they
yeah, they
travel
create
like
portals. They have to.
intradimensionally.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Probably most, if not all, ETs that we encounter are transdimensional.
Okay.
And they're not just extraterrestrial. Like some of them are here in a higher dimension or lower dimension, but I think that the entire cosmos is multidimensional. This planet
Mm-hmm.
is multidimensional. In a lower realm, Earth is smaller. In a higher realm, Earth is a
Right.
larger planet. And then you got all these other planets out there, and then they have life. And so the beings that are there, they have to create a quantum singularity to fold time space
Right.
in order to pass through it to travel these great distances. It's not normal propulsion like,
Right.
stomp on the gas, let's full throttle. No, they're folding space time and just passing through this portal. So they're manipulating gravity to do it, and when they do that, they can go into different dimensions.
Right. And I imagine
So
that part of their technology is having the ability to say, when you fold it, that's my destination. And that's where you end up at. How's that?
exactly, the movie Event Horizon, horror movie, right?
Oh man,
Kind of
that's a great movie. It's way out there, but it's pretty good.
it's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he basically they're experimenting with this technology,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately discovered that the dimension that they opened it up to was hell,
Yes.
and all these bad things were in there, and then messed these people up, and then they ended up all dying. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, for a horror movie, I'd consider it a B grade. It was really gory, but I think that there was a slice of reality
I think
there.
it was very original considering
Mhm.
some of these horror movies are
And
very
I think what they're doing with CERN, um,
oh yeah.
I think they might be messing around with some stuff and possibly tiptoeing into open a portal to hell. That's what happens actually in this book. Um,
Well, if you look
this is
at
the unleashing the prophecy of Revelation 9:1. It's just which I think could actually happen in the future. They could open up a
let me tell you,
portal and
their whatever their intent is, if you go based on their opening ceremonies, there's something weird going on
oh
over
yeah,
there. Okay,
no,
this is not
and
like you always think of all these top scientists, you
yeah,
know.
okay. So then there was this other somewhat related topic of okay, if we have Bigfoot and if we had giants in the past and all these Nephilim are real, how come we don't find their bones? Blah blah blah. Oh, we've been finding their bones, and the Smithsonian dumped them
Hmm.
in the ocean,
Yeah.
and they've been getting rid of them. And so people were like upset to hear about that, But I'm like, okay, but there might be a reason they might want to get rid of them. If you think about what it is, it's a demon, right? The
Hmm.
physical remains of a demon, of what is
Right.
now a demon. Um, Something about bones tend to hold residual energy a little bit better than any other part of the body. The bones tend to
Right.
stick around.
Right.
There's a story in the Bible, a good version of that is that the prophet um, Elijah was buried in a tomb, and there was these guys taking somebody to bury him in the cemetery, and he
Hmm.
accidentally dropped the body, and he rolls into the tomb and touched the bones of Elijah, and he was resurrected from the dead.
Okay.
So there was enough residual life force and
Force.
God's
Okay.
glory and power, even in his bones after he died, to resurrect somebody from the dead. And that is actually literally in the Bible. And I took that and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Now I'm thinking about bones, and my mind is going through a Rolodex of like, think of every scripture I know of about bones and every
Hmm.
paranormal thing I know of about bones. And then it occurred to me, okay, why would they want to get rid of these bones of the Nephilim if they find bones of giants and they consistently get rid of them? Why? Maybe you wouldn't want to be in a museum at night that had a demon's body in it, and
Right.
that demon, and it's my theory too. There's places that are known as cursed ground. If you watch any of these haunted shows,
Yes.
they'll say, "Yeah, there's a demon here, and it just inhabits this place. We don't know why. What
Right.
gives it the
Yes.
authority here?" I think if you were to do an excavation in that area, you might find a Nephilim, the bones buried
You
there.
know what? And I've heard the same thing of the Smithsonian, but from what I understand, they weren't doing it for how's this? Oh, because we don't want to house that artifact or those bones because God knows, we would. It was almost like we just want to get rid of proof of we want to call it
Yeah,
biblical evidence or
some
anything.
you could accuse them that they're antagonistic against the biblical history,
Right.
and that they would want to do that. But I think that there might also be a natural reason, like, man, those bones. So I'll tell you, there's a museum that was not affiliated with the Smithsonian,
Okay.
the Golden Museum in Lima, Peru.
Okay.
So when I wrote my first book, Aliens in the Bible, long time ago, 25 years ago, I remember on the internet was kind of new back then, and I was
Okay.
searching for giants, and this museum had a picture on their website of this human skull that was like this big. I
Okay.
mean, massive, and it was in a glass case. And I'm like,
Okay.
I got to go to Lima, Peru. So my pastor had a friend that was a missionary in Peru, and I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
next time you want to go there, let me know. I'd like to go there. I want to visit that museum and see that giant. But
Mhm.
of course, I was poor back then, and I just couldn't find the time or whatever,
Right.
and I'd never been there. Um, but years later, when I was writing a follow-up book,
Right.
I was researching it, and I went to their website, and I didn't see that there anymore. I'm like, what the heck? Why would you want to get rid of something like that? If you had
Sure.
that, you could advertise that, draw tourists from
Oh,
all around the
that would
world
have
to
been a
tell,
big draw.
hey, yeah, we got these bones that that validate what's in the Old Testament. Everybody come on down, and but it was gone off the website. So they had the email addresses there. I emailed the curator. I'm like, what happened to the giant? In the research I had, it originally started as a male and a female giant, full skeletons.
Okay.
In their archaeological dig documentation, archaeologists are very meticulous about, well, I found this, and blah, blah,
Sure.
blah. And, this spear weighs this much. It's made of these kinds of metals. I mean, they're very detailed
Yes.
in all the notes. So these Smithsonian museums have been methodically getting rid of their evidence that they ever had things, but they didn't
Mhm.
purge their notes, their
Right.
research notes. And there was a guy that wrote a book, and he traveled to all these museums before they got rid of the notes, and he documented what they found. And like, there was an Egyptian tomb that was discovered in Arizona, for example. Egyptian
Mhm.
hieroglyphs. The Egyptians were here. The
Right. I've
Vikings were
heard of that.
here. The Celts were here, and there's all kinds of evidence. But the Smithsonian didn't like that. They had their version
Right.
of history, and I talked about that in that book. Um, so they were antagonistic against that, and they wanted America's history to be a certain way for certain reasons.
Mhm.
But regarding these bones, I think that there was something else that was going on, and this place was not governed by the
Did they
Smithsonian.
ever tell you what they did with it? That
I
curator ever?
contacted the guy, and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said,
Oh,
were you not
really?
the curator here back in 1995? And he was like, yes, I was, and I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, completely
Yeah.
shut me down. He didn't want to discuss it. Like,
Okay.
it disturbed him to even mention it. And that's when I started thinking maybe there's
And you
something
would
else
think of
going
all
on
the
here.
artifacts, that's something he would definitely remember. I mean, it's like,
And then there was this other last thing that I've heard rumor of,
mhm.
that there's these groups like the World Economic Forum, that they have these creepy
Yes.
rituals and stuff, and
Mhm.
some of these people, you see the outfits, it's like satanic stuff, some of them,
Oh, sure.
and they
Sure.
have their rituals. Well, I've heard that they have been doing everything they can to get as many of these bones as they can. And
Really?
what they do is they involve them in their rituals. And if you think about it, if the bones
Yes.
really do have this residual energy in it,
Yes.
probably powerful if you learned
Sure.
or knew how to harness it.
Sure.
So they might be doing some weird, wacky stuff, like taking all these bones and crushing them down into some consolidated medallion or something, and then wear it, and then incorporate that into their rituals. And that they might have hit up the Smithsonian or paid the
That's very
Smithsonian,
possible.
give me
Yes.
everything you got, we want it.
Yeah.
And the Smithsonian's like, be my guest. That's
Sure.
in warehouse 13, right? And you have that whole goofy show
Or
about
hey,
it.
either give us the bones or no more grants. Okay.
Right,
No more
exactly.
grants for you.
Yeah, you like that $1 billion we gave you last year? Well, you
Right.
could
Yeah. No
say
more
goodbye to any,
expeditions. We're not going to fund the expedition to wherever.
yeah, or probably they
Uh,
were the ones that funded the expeditions that asked for the bones to
well,
begin
I
with.
think that a lot of these, if you look at some of these trustees which there were private citizens, but a lot of times, there were trustees that they would do the quote unquote vacations. And
Mm-hmm.
basically what they were doing was artifact hunting. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And especially, I'm going to say way back, well, a few years where basically, let's say if you were in Egypt, you could take artifacts and mummies, and most governments at that time really didn't give anybody grief because you were taking out artifacts. You know,
Wow.
now
Wow.
now it's tightened up as far as the taking out artifacts from another country or or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. But
But I think
and
a lot of
these
these trustees were on the lookout for certain artifacts while they were just,
mhm.
oh, we're gonna tour the Orient, or oh, we're gonna go through Europe, or we're gonna go through here,
Yeah, the
just
Indiana Jones, Hitler was into
yeah,
that too. He was
yes.
trying to find all these artifacts. There's a core of truth to that.
But they wouldn't go
Uh,
on expeditions per se. They would kind of mask it.
they would maybe
Like let's say
fund
if they
them.
were a trustee,
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm with my family and we're just gonna take this trip, this extended trip
Hmm.
through wherever. But they were really always what they were
Well,
doing
we're
is
gonna take a
searching
little
for
detour over
artifacts.
here for 90% of the vacation, and
Yeah, yes, that's
yeah,
exactly what they would do. That's
yeah.
exactly what they would do.
And
Everybody thinks
I
that these discoveries were these expeditions, like where, let's say, when they discovered Tutankhamun's tomb and stuff like that. A lot of those trustees would ship back a lot of the things that, hey, I just happened to come across this, whatever it was.
yeah, and these dudes are they're power hungry. They're weird, psychopath. Just they'll do anything for power and money,
Sure.
but power. So it really wouldn't surprise me if they're looking for these things.
Yeah.
I would think that Nephilim DNA would be a high commodity too, because these beings have supernatural power. Well, how can I get that supernatural power for myself? Um,
Hmm.
there's these stories. You might have heard of the giant of Kandahar.
Yes.
Uh, well, I happen to know a guy
Hmm.
in the army sniper who was in Iraq. So apparently there was a giant in Iraq too. He was sent
Okay.
there to take out a Taliban target,
All right.
and I'm still in contact with this guy too, so it's kind of
All
cool.
right.
But he was sent there to take out a Taliban target, and when he showed up at the site and he was observing the village, he saw at first he thought it was an adult walking around with some little kids, but the proportion looked a little off. Like,
Okay.
isn't that far?
Right.
Um, like a half mile is things should be kind of small, right? But the proportions seem like, well, it's this dude and these little kids, right? And the guy had a dog under his arm, and but then when he looked through the scope, he realized it was a cow,
Oh.
and it was an adult, like 12 feet tall or something like that,
Uh-huh.
with a cow under his arm, a full-grown cow, and they were all adults around his knees.
Yeah, the kids
Yeah,
were adults.
yeah, and the guy told me the kneecaps of this thing was about the top of a Humvee,
Okay.
and he shot it with his 50 cal. He like even forgot about his Taliban terrorist target and thought, I've got to
Uh-huh.
shoot that thing. Obviously, I mean, it was a terrorist that was there in the camp, so
Uh-huh.
they were all combatants in his opinion. But this thing was like a weapon of mass destruction, I guess. Yeah, that's how he saw it.
Well,
And so he shot it, and it actually lived through it, and it dropped the cow and ran. And he said that was one of the best shots he ever made. It was almost a half mile away, but shot it with a 50 cal, and it lived. It dropped the
okay.
cow and ran. But he was. I tried to get him to come on one of these shows with me, and
Right.
he's like, hell no. Some really bad dudes told me to keep my mouth shut. And if I have anybody in my life that I love and I want them to continue to be a part of my life, then I need to keep my mouth shut.
In
This
other
guy
words, and it's
lives
the kind of people you don't call their bluff kind of deal.
right. This guy lives out in the middle of nowhere, off grid.
Hmm.
He's got a farm, his own little ecosystem, chickens and stuff like that. And
Right.
well, I mean, he probably has electricity, but he lives out in the
Right.
middle of nowhere, and he's got his home set up kind of like a fortress because
Right.
he's scared even to this day. And that was like 20 years ago that happened.
Sure.
Well, it was during the the Iraq invasion,
Mm-hmm.
and he's still scared. And I told him when I was telling him, trying to say, well, people are talking now, Gorsuch and all those people are all just laying it out. They got congressional protection now,
Right.
supposedly. Um, and so I finally got him to say, yeah, I think I will. But then, he still waffles. Last time I emailed him, he didn't want to reply back. And so I'm like,
You
what
know
the hell,
what?
man?
And almost you want to think, well, you know what? Am I going to tempt fate?
Yeah. I got to track down that guy, the Bigfoot guy, too, because he supposedly lives here in Central Valley. We were in high school together, but I don't remember his last name. So I'd have to go find a yearbook and then find his picture in there. I remember his first name and then see if I could find him because there was this other show called Blurry Creatures.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to talk to him. They liked my Bigfoot story. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm secondhand. They're like, no, we want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I'd like to find him. So that's my homework there. I got
But
another
yeah.
assignment too. Apparently, a friend of mine here in Clovis,
Uh-huh.
there's a tunnel that goes under one of the main roads over here, Herndon, and he took
Okay.
a picture of it. And there's this brass sign that says a giant human skeleton was found here. That's all it
Really?
says. And I'm like, what a weird sign to put. I mean, it's
Yes.
like solid metal. It costs money to put it and bolt it into
Yes.
this concrete wall. Who the hell put that there? Where's
That's
that
interesting.
giant?
Uh-huh.
So at first I got to find the sign. I went looking for it this morning actually, and my friend said, "Well, he will have to show me where he saw it."
Let me tell you, I think
Yeah.
sometimes some of these artifacts, including these bones, sometimes also end up in private collections.
Oh yeah, somebody's basement or something. Uh,
Somebody that's like, ah, you know what? I don't need to tell anybody that I've got this. All I need to know is that I've got it. And as a
yeah,
matter
the
of fact,
second they tell somebody, their house is
yeah,
raided and it's gone.
right,
So
exactly. It's like, I'll just keep it private in that way. Nobody knows that I'm the one that's got the whatever it is, fill in the blank. But yeah, I
yeah,
think a lot of these things do end up in private collections,
probably, probably.
and that's the only way sometimes, like you said, to keep it theirs because probably never going to get reimbursed or,
Hmm. I got the proof. Well, it
yeah,
was that
well,
famous sphere that those people found, right? It was a metal sphere, and it
hmm
it would roll around the house by itself. And the lady, she was an actress, so she was well known in Hollywood. And it was a family that had this sphere, and it made the news, and they talked about it on talk shows and stuff. And well, this was a while back, like in the 70s or
hmm
80s or something like that. But they found this sphere, this metal
okay,
sphere, and it had energy, and like it would move around and do stuff of its own accord.
okay,
And eventually, some people found it was stolen. Eventually, but
yeah.
they had pictures of it and stuff, and then they had been in interviews and everything for enough. There's another guy too that's down like Mexico, I think, that he supposedly has one of these spheres too, but that kind of that doesn't seem to be valid in my opinion. That is more like hoaxy in my opinion. I
Okay.
saw the sphere; it looks like somebody's art project or something. It doesn't look like. I'm like,
Yeah, like,
interesting story, but it looks
in other
like
words,
somebody
it's a
could have made
clickbait
it.
kind of deal.
Yeah, yeah,
Let me tell you something. There's a lot of stuff. I still think, really in all things of like that, it's the ones that know how to keep their mouths shut. All right,
yeah, yeah.
that like in all things.
Oh, if I found a downed alien spaceship or something, I'd be snatching stuff up left and right and then keeping it.
Well, you know
I
what?
would be
That's
hiding it.
that guy that back in '47, Roswell, Mac Brazel, that he took this thing and thinking he's doing a good thing and coming forward with what he had found. Later
Hmm.
on, from what I understand, he said he was very, very sorry he had ever like brought it to attention. Not that he wanted to keep it,
Hmm.
but he was very sorry he had done anything and taken it into to the authorities,
Oh
etc. Because
yeah, they gave him. Didn't they give him something back and it was completely different?
well, he was that. From what I understand, after he took it over there, he was kind of like for a few days. He was taken in by the military, and everybody
Hmm.
thinks that he got threatened. You
Yeah,
know, threatened as in you're patriotic, but just in case you're not patriotic enough, we're going to threaten you also to go with it.
yeah.
And they said that before he got picked up, he was talking about it. He was like excited. And then after he came back, it was like, I'm not talking about this. I don't want to talk about it. And
Yeah.
he did that like till he died. He was like,
Yeah, there
nah,
really is a Men in Black, you know, and they're in
yeah,
this book too, you know. There's a Man
yeah.
in White in that book too.
But
Sort of
I
the
think,
opposite
do you
version.
think Men in Black are real humans or are they
Probably both.
okay?
Like might be a couple of CIA agents with or DIA agents or some other acronym.
Can you
NSA,
imagine
no such
if
agency.
these Men in Black, let's go with the idea that they're human, you know. You
Hmm.
know, you're basically the silence. You're the enforcer. You're going to go out there and tell whoever's had an experience or saw something or had something, hey, shut up. But at the same time, you know this stuff is real because otherwise you wouldn't
Hmm.
be out there, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine as you get older, what if two things is going to happen? You always got to think. I'm going to get scared because I'm thinking someday somebody's going to say he knows too much because he's seen too much. Why? Because he was a Men in Black,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking even I imagine he wouldn't even want to tell his family because I'm always thinking, you know, they could say, did he ever? He didn't ever go public per se,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, there is a guy. I seen his video
okay,
where he came forward. He was really old too.
okay,
Actually, there's more than one. Actually, one guy was read into the file, so to speak, and he was spilling the
hmm
beans because he had some terminal illness and he
right,
was
like
checking
yeah,
out within a few months. So
he
he
was not long
gave
for this
his.
world.
He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna tell you everything.
Okay,
And then this other guy might have been in a similar situation, and he was telling all these stories about,
uh huh,
yeah, even some really bad stuff that he did
sure,
to
yeah,
make people shut up. And then he felt bad about it, so he was trying to clear his conscience the best he could.
right,
Uh, Very convincing stories. Um, yeah, there was a guy too. He was a contractor. Wish I knew his name offhand, but you could find him. He was a Department of Defense contractor, built
hmm
underground facilities,
right,
and and during one of their projects, they encountered a hollow space deep under the ground,
okay,
and I said, "Oh, okay, we found a what do you call it, an infestation of these beings," and they brought SEAL team in there to deal with it, and he went down with them uh, in the tunnel, and then before he even got all the way to the bottom, there was all this shooting and a firefight down there.
hmm
Um, Not all of them got out alive, and something was shooting. He said it was didn't think it was a laser, but it was similar. It was like this pulse or something,
okay,
and came up and hit his hand. And he was giving this presentation the whole time, and he said, "Yeah," and it shot my hand. And he lifts his hand, and his hand, like three of his fingers are gone, and his hand looked weird, like part of it's melted off. And he said, "Yeah, it just
okay.
took my
Did
hand."
they ever? I mean, when they say what was in there, or no, did they ever
Oh,
describe?
yeah, that there were these beings that they were really tall, uh,
Okay,
like 7 foot tall or something, like gray type aliens, but 7 feet
okay,
tall and
but
very
tall ones.
violent,
Okay,
very
all right,
violent, very evil, and that they are here in the United States under the ground, underground, and that they have facilities all over the place. And when we find
wow,
them, we go to war with them, and we've been fighting
wow.
them for a while. And he said that his days were numbered, and that if he's ever found,
Mm-hmm.
if his body is ever found, and they say that he committed suicide, that it's a lie,
Right,
and just believe that what he's telling, what he's saying is the truth, and that he is not going to commit suicide, and it
right,
and eventually he will end up most likely leaving evidence behind in the form of predicting his so-called suicide. And he was dead
right.
in about maybe 2 weeks later
There
after
you go.
giving that presentation to those people. So
Wow.
pretty sad.
And again, you know, you hear about all these dead man triggers, you know, like, but it's like, who wants to be the one that that the recipient of that it's like, I wouldn't want to be that, because the next thing you know, you're on the hit list, and maybe
Yeah.
nobody understands why. Is just that you were the one that was going to get the recipient.
Yeah, and
whatever it was.
things are shaking up though. I mean, with the
Sure.
Navy coming clean with what happened with the USS Nimitz back in 2015 with this UAPs and stuff, and then congressional,
I heard one time I was reading that even as early as 2000, was it the Nimitz? I can't remember. No, I think it was a Ronald Reagan. They had just been built, and they had like an orb following it around for 2 or 3 days. A big golden orb.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, even Christopher Columbus saw St. Elmo's fire, right? This big, bright, glowing ball of light in the sky, and so we've been around for a long time.
Oh yeah. I
but
mean,
the interesting thing to me is that the DoD had been saying nothing to see here all these years, and then suddenly, during
and I
the
think
pandemic,
the people are a little bit cynical, because it's like, now you're coming. What, like, unfortunately, we now.
yeah, during
are
the
wondering.
pandemic, you have these, okay, there's looting at Walmart, and oh, by the way, the Navy just released this video. They say they don't know what it
Sure,
is.
exactly.
I'm like,
So people are like,
what?
come on.
Did
Yes.
anybody even notice that? That this is the Navy that released it. That's the best evidence you can get. They had people that visually seen it from the deck of the ships, giving their eyewitness testimony, mass sighting eyewitness. So it was physically there in the sky. They got it on radar, they got it on sonar, and they had pilots up in the sky that were getting buzzed and scared out of their mind because it was a safety violation. And that's what brought this all out. This guy said, and now they say that some pilots did actually get killed, and they're brushing it under the rug. And it's like, this dude's like, you can't keep doing this. And so he put his life on the line coming forward. And then they came out with the Whistleblower Act. So now more guys are coming forward, but then they're doing what the intel community does, right? The intel community, when they can't suppress something, then they dilute it. Like WikiLeaks, right? WikiLeaks is full of all kinds of fake garbage, right? So when they do the data dump, oh, Hillary's email servers, all this stuff's out here, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, let's dilute it with a bunch of other stuff that's wrong. So they don't know what's real.
So you don't know really what's the truth. And
so some of it's true.
Where everybody's at, where it's like, people, I think overall, so many people have been blackpilled and become cynical. Like, I don't know whether to believe that or not. Maybe it's the truth, but maybe not.
And now with AI and deepfake videos and stuff, people are going to be coming up with
that's another thing. I'm waiting
aliens can come down and like land in front of your house and come out and, give you a cake and say, yeah, peace out, bro, and then go and leave. You get it all on tape and everything. Everybody be laughing. So that's CGI. And it's like,
it's like, man,
no,
great.
The aliens really came. And they do have these videos now. They're just more and more. And it's like, okay, well, now they're probably
the thing. As a matter of fact, I was reading, this was already a few years ago, that they were saying, usually when you find DNA, let's say at a crime scene, that's like that seals the doom of the person being accused. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
DNA evidence is like, that's it, you're toast. But they were saying, if at some point we can reproduce DNA, in other words, that the defense team can say this DNA was found there, but it could have been planted there. He says that will be the end of the DNA, no questions asked, you're guilty thing.
It's not your ironclad evidence anymore.
Nah, eventually it'll be like, if because remember, at the end of the day, you have to have, if there's doubt that a person's guilty, you're not going to convict this person. So all you have to do is plant that seed of doubt.
I say, no, we got CCTV. Yeah, sure you do. That's a deep fake video. You're
right, and I think that goes along with even these things, that could reproduce your voice.
Yeah.
I think
that now they say families should have a code. So when somebody calls and asks for an ID or a password or a credit card,
something,
it's like, okay, what's the secret password? Gloop gloop. Exactly. Oh, okay, you're in.
And from what I understand, all they have to do is hear like less than 5 seconds of your voice.
Not much. Yeah.
Right, in order to be able to reproduce it.
I mean, that's another sign too, and AI is another sign that I point out. Revelation chapter 13 talks about the image of the beast. The image of the beast in Revelation is a man-made entity that can talk and speak and regulate the global economy. Is
Wow.
that not AI?
Yeah.
How is that not AI? So,
Yes.
and that's kind of where it's going.
And
Everybody
where, oh
sees
boy,
big
is it
government
going?
all
It's
over
going
this.
all right in that direction, and whether we
Yeah,
want to or not. But yeah, it's across.
yeah. And
And
all this ET phenomenon and stuff, yeah, the fake stuff is out there and it's becoming more
mhm.
prominent. But I do believe we will eventually get disclosure because Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. In the days of Noah were crazy. Otherworldly beings coming here in open contact. And with our technology, I mean, we're going to other planets and eventually we'll go there. Um,
I think that,
we AI will probably develop propulsion that can do what we want it to do to be able to travel to other worlds, find life out there. So if it doesn't come here, we'll go there, one way or another, and we'll prove, okay, it's here. And our reality, our sense of reality, will begin to unfold in a way that a lot of people are going to have a hard time struggling with, which is
oh, for
the
sure.
reason why, I wrote that
Absolutely.
book, Christian Ufology, just so people have a lens in order which to understand it. Just because ETs are real doesn't mean the Bible is not right. In fact, the Bible predicts it. So,
Right.
and I made all these predictions. I do believe that we will find archaeological evidence of an advanced civilization
Hmm.
buried in the earth. We probably already found it in Antarctica. I heard news of
Yes, I've
that
heard of that.
from my military contacts. I heard news of that. So there's
Let's
something in
face
there.
it, they keep it awfully guarded for nothing being there, supposedly.
Yeah, and there is a military presence there. So
Yeah.
okay, why is our military in Antarctica of all places?
Hmm.
That's weird. Not like it's a hotly contested area to go and
Right.
want to live there. It's pretty dang inhospitable.
Yes,
You need a
it
lot of
is.
support just to exist there.
Yes,
So why are we there?
exactly. Why would
Know.
somebody, or not, well, not somebody, but a nation or anybody or any entity go through all that trouble
Hmm.
to be somewhere where supposedly it's all is ice and wind and snow and
Yeah.
that's it?
See, all these things it's like all these trains on a bunch of different tracks all converging at the same point, all at the same time. AI, global currencies, the pandemic stuff going on, all these
Hmm.
wars, tinkering with genetics,
Oh yeah.
tinkering with dimensional portals and CERN
Yes.
and
Sarnia colliders
travel
and
and
stuff like that.
then prophecies coming true, the Euphrates River drying up, uh, the army of the East being 200 million. It's actually the numbers given in the Bible, and China's army is that big now.
I'll
Uh,
tell you.
and it's really interesting to be born in this age, in this time, to
Sure.
see all these things coming to pass. And I'm just wondering if we'll be the generation to see the big stuff.
Let me tell you something. The rate we're
Uh,
going at the speed where things are developing, I think so. I
yeah.
think so.
And
But
some people are scared of it. The Antichrist and the strong delusion and all of that.
well, you know
But there's
what?
a good side to that too. There's apparently, like Jesus said, greater works will we do than he done, and so we've all been looking for these greater works all this time. And I haven't seen anybody walk on water unless it's some magician or something. And
I think that a lot of people, I think humans beings by their nature are very kind of resistant to change,
hmm
and everybody knows that what's coming is like it's not incremental. You know how that's like basically we're like heading down, like on the roller coaster ride. When you're down, going down that way, the
yeah,
change is like it
it's
doesn't whether you want it
exponential.
or not. Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah,
gonna happen.
it's got a sharp curve and it's
Yes.
heading toward the end really
Hmm.
quick. And you
Yeah.
got to know whose side you're going to be on uh, as things really start to take shape and
Sure.
and
Yeah.
reveal things that are coming up.
I think a lot of things that people once upon a time, whether you want to call them science fiction or conspiracy or dystopia, like, oh, that's a great movie script. All of a sudden, you're realizing that wasn't, that's not make believe. That's possibly real. What? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, there's people literally talking about
Yes.
Terminator and stuff, and they're like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. AI,
we're
the
not too far from
Skynet.
that. You
That,
listen to Elon Musk talking about transhumanism and stuff, and
yes.
I actually wrote about it 20 years ago that artificial intelligence is going to drive us toward transhumanism because the people who do augment themselves with computers, we're going to
Hmm.
be leaps and bounds ahead of people who don't. And
Right.
the
Well,
only
this is what
way to
he's
function in society is to be augmented with computers.
well, this
And
is what he's saying. As a matter of fact, he recently made a comment along those lines as far as the fear of AI. That basically the way to get around that is to do exactly what you just described, which is to integrate or enhance yourself with some type of robotics.
mhm.
All right. In other words, the Borg. I'm only kidding for that. But,
Right, right. No,
that in other
literally. I
words,
mean, your
you
brain
are
can integrate with the internet.
right.
Then
And you know what? I tell everybody these things always start out, oh, we're doing this to help, like in this case, like the Neuralink, like, oh, a person that's disabled or has some type of brain damage. We're going to help them. That's
yeah,
usually
yeah. Who
how they
doesn't want to
start.
see a paralyzed person walk again, you
Right. So
know?
everybody's like, of course. And then the next thing you know, it's like, yeah.
Well, where's the
And I'm,
line? Let's just keep
yes.
moving it a little further, a little
Yeah.
further, a little further. Can
And then you go,
blind
by the
person
way, now
see,
we've,
deaf person hear, and then
yes.
eventually, well, that same technology is already there. You just flip a switch, and now suddenly you can access the internet with
Right.
your brain just by thinking.
Right.
How
Yes.
intelligent
Exactly.
would you be? You know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like in other words, a modern day version of the $6 million man, for people that don't know
Yeah.
that show, that was basically a very early prototype of what they're talking about,
Yeah.
which is
Well, and
enhancement.
that's the physical abilities, but the
Right.
cognitive
Oh,
abilities
yeah. 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 Yeah.
would dwarf all of that. And in terms of the danger it poses, it makes nuclear power look relatively tame because what you can create if you have unlimited intelligence could probably
Have you ever
destroy the
seen that
planet.
movie Johnny Mnemonic
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Keanu Reeves?
yeah.
Where basically he's like a big memory stick, for lack of a better
Oh,
word.
yeah, yeah. And they got multiple versions of that now.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp was in one, another one that was similar to
Right.
that, and then the Lawnmower Man was the older one, the Stephen King one. Um, all of that where we integrate our consciousness with computers, and that's where it's going. I mean, to
But
keep up.
what was it? Don't you remember that in Johnny Mnemonic, he had like X of amount of space in his capacity of his brain, and basically he had a chip, I don't know what, in
Yeah,
there. And that basically he got slammed with all this information. That's why they were looking for him to behead him.
yeah,
But he was basically back. In other words, it's a dystopian where people are couriers, and
yeah,
you're okay as
yeah,
long as you're not downloaded with the wrong well, not the wrong information, but dangerous information, that
yeah,
kind of deal. But yeah, what's what we're looking at, like you said, we're going to put this in your brain, and that way, guess what, we can download information into you, and there
yeah.
you
And
go.
and I've said it. I said it in the past that I think the mark of the beast will be something like that, something related to transhumanism. It'll be pitched as a way that, like, how can you say no to this?
Hmm.
Um, it'll have so many benefits. We're already moving in the direction of having an AI assistant within the next year or so. Everybody will like have an AI assistant. Like, you've seen cell phones, right?
Yes,
This NSA surveillance device that we have now that's listening to us all the time and
absolutely, yes.
cataloging us and profiling us and learning everything there is to know
Scraping
about us
information constantly.
to be able to manipulate us 7 ways from
Hmm.
Sunday. And
Yes.
now it's being augmented with artificial intelligence built into the operating system. And then the
Right.
next step is to turn this into a chip. And there were a lot of people pushing for that. Bill Gates, one of the big
Hmm.
reasons was, the digital passport, and also what could be included with that would be a vaccine passport.
Sure, everything.
And
It'll be like all under the same umbrella.
currency, your money, which the Bible
Hmm.
literally says, the mark of the beast, which will be part of the beast system, and that image of the beast will be about controlling people, and it will use buying and selling to do it.
Yeah,
Uh,
anything. It'll be to. As a matter of fact, today they were talking about. I don't know if you've heard recently that it's like a gaming system platform called Roblox,
Okay.
and they're in hot water because apparently a lot of kids or young people use it for gaming, and that a lot of groomers basically had, pretending to be their age. And
Mm-hmm.
apparently it's been going on for a long time, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Basically groom or develop relationship with kids or, teenagers or whatever, right? So in Louisiana, they introduced a bill, whether it was yesterday or today, that to go on any of these platforms, you have to ID yourself.
Ah.
But the problem is that the reasoning behind it is, oh, we want to protect children.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you have to ID yourself. This has nothing to whoever you are to be on this gaming thing.
Right.
All right.
They can
Instead of
monitor and control it. Yeah.
thank you or saying, like, for everything else, you want to bank, we need to ID you. You want to do this, we need to ID you. You want to go on this, but of course you have to protect the children. And it's like, okay, there's other ways
Mm-hmm.
to monitor or verify that. If it's
Yeah.
let's say an underage person versus IDing everybody that goes on there.
Yeah.
And they were saying how the system has already been around for like 20 years, give or take a little bit. And apparently these rumors or suspicions that all this grooming and all this stuff was going on has been going on for years. In other words, that if they really wanted to do something about it, they could have done it years ago. As far as, hey,
Yeah.
we need to crack down and find out who's on there that's, like an adult or somebody that's inappropriate or something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But the
Yeah.
timing on it is suspicious that now all of a sudden, all right, they want to ID now everybody that goes. And, if they do it for that system, they're going to do it for everything else.
Yeah, and security. I mean, they'll have solid reasons.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Security, safety. Hey, we won't want to be in the Wild West over here. We're a
Sure.
civilized, country, and you got all this nefarious stuff going on. You have to try
Oh, and
to.
all you need to do is say that,
Uh,
by the way, the children, everybody's like, oh, of course. And it's like, wait a
yeah,
minute.
yeah. Even though most of those people will probably be
Yes.
all in favor of abortion. It's like, really? Do
Right.
you?
Well, and exactly. And this, no, no, no. Believe it or
Uh,
not, it's like
yeah.
they I'm not, how's this? I understand which by the way, parents do have a responsibility in this. Hello.
Hmm. Yeah.
As far as protecting kids, absolutely. I'm 100% in favor of that.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's kind of like, I think you're using that to make everybody. So you can just track everybody.
Oh
And
yeah.
basically, before you
Yeah.
know it, well, you
Well,
have to sign up here for this and this
the
and that. And before you
pandemic is
know it,
probably the biggest case in point
hmm
that I never ever would have believed in 2020 or
hmm
2019 that the
oh,
government would actually be behind something that would want to instill fear in people
no,
intentionally and cause mass public. Like, no, the government doesn't want to cause mass public. That would be chaos.
right.
No, they actually want they want that chaos.
You know what?
We saw it. I mean, they were burning down police stations and
No,
riots
some of
and
this, I remember, and the reason why I remember it is because my mom passed away in December of 2019. You know how sometimes certain events in your life you remember specifically what was going
yeah.
on?
Hmm.
That's why I remember very much. Yeah, but sometimes you get caught up in living and everything becomes a blur. That's why I
Hmm.
remember specifically what I was doing, right, going into 2020.
Hmm.
And it was like that to me is the cutoff point where before that, somebody would have told me, hey, this is what's going to happen in the next 5 years. I would have said, no way. Yeah, what? That's
No,
a great story. Sure, sure.
that's the pale
Man, I'm
horse right
telling you.
there. One of the four horsemen.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that was
same
another
thing.
one. So I saw so much stuff. At first, my pastor's like, "What do you think of all of this?" I'm like, "Oh, it'll blow over in 2 weeks."
Right, right. That's what everybody was thinking at the beginning.
Boy, did I miss that one. And then
Yeah,
when I saw the stuff and then the people wearing the masks, I'm like, I have biology. A mask ain't doing anything. And that mask is the equivalent of putting a chain link fence around your house and thinking
right.
you're going to keep the mosquitoes out.
Yeah,
A virus is so small, it just goes
yeah.
right through it. my biology teacher used to laugh and talk about condoms. You're like, latex condom, really? You seen a latex condom through? It's not keeping a disease out. It's designed to keep the woman from getting pregnant. It's not designed to keep the woman from getting AIDS. It will
Exactly.
not work for that. Period.
And people don't
And
realize.
and just knowing those things, and I was like, okay, the mask is bunk, but don't say anything about it. Like, good grief, you say something about it, people freak out.
Let me tell you something.
And
Today, of all things, today, was it today or yesterday? I'm right down the street, and I'm telling you, out here it's in the 90s. It's hot, humid, and I
oh
see
yeah,
this lady walking down the street. I guess she was walking to. She has a mask on, and I was looking at her, and I was like, "What's wrong with this lady?"
some
She's about
people
to
are
imagine she
scarred
might
for
be
life.
passing out any minute. There's nobody around her. She's outside. She's not like it's like, lady, what are you doing? I'm hot. I'm hot looking at you. I'm sweating just looking at you with this mask on your face. How
We
can you
want
be
to think, we
breathing?
want to believe that she has a pollen allergy or something. But
Come
yeah, I've seen
on.
people driving in their car alone with the
Yeah.
windows rolled
And
up
it
with
was like,
a mask on, and like,
man,
who
I want
protects
to
you?
say, John, that I think that in the last 5 years, a lot of people that said people won't fall for that. You found out that a lot of people do fall for that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
people would have said, oh man. And then all of a sudden you see all these people acting
Yeah,
crazy.
and the same people even insinuating that you're stupid for not believing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, I
Exactly.
did
For
get out of the
questioning.
military sooner than later because of that. A
Yeah.
a good reason. Well, there were several things that converged.
Hmm.
Um, they were going to force me to retire, even though
Right.
there was nobody groomed to take my place,
Right.
and so I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. You work really hard to make it up to chief, and then force me out. Uh,
Right.
because you want the slot to keep revolving. You don't want a person at the top hole. I get that,
Yeah.
but if there's
That,
nobody there, you're going to kick me out just to pull some outsider from off the street to take that position. I'm not holding anybody back, right? So there was that, and but the whole atmosphere of the base. I mean, I've been there for 25 years, and
hmm.
yet people were treating me like I was a weirdo because I didn't want to get the shot. And I'm like, well, no,
Yes.
I did some research, and this was never fully tested. It's
Right.
experimental, and it's only being released on an emergency authorization.
Sure.
But if I mention to say any of that on LinkedIn, my account's
Hmm.
deleted. And that
Really?
happened to me. My account got deleted because I was posting something from Dr. Malone, one of
Hmm.
the inventors of
Yeah.
mRNA. He posts
Yes.
like, I don't recommend this widely used all over the place, and especially
Right.
on kids. And boom, he was, you know, had
Yes.
tons of doctors jumping up trying
Oh
to
no.
destroy his credibility, and I'm like, wait a second. And I mentioned him, and my account's nuked, right? And I had to go and
Hmm.
rebuild my account and all this stuff and then be careful about what I said. But had they not done so much censoring, I probably
Yes.
would have got the shot because I was in the military. I've been getting shot every single year. Shoot me up. I've been taking anthrax and stuff,
Sure.
right?
Right.
But this was mRNA. It was gene therapy, completely
Yes.
radically different technology.
Yes.
So that's why I read into it. And yet I was the only chief at my base who didn't get the shot. And they were
Yeah.
hazing me, right? I would show up at the meeting and they had these hazing policies. If one person shows up that hasn't had the shot, then everybody has to mask up. But if
Oh my God.
everybody in the room has the shot, they don't have to wear that stupid mask and have
So
a hard time
it
breathing.
was all your fault.
And I'm like, well, wait, what about HIPAA? So if I'm walking
Right.
around with a mask, I'm basically announcing to everybody I haven't had the shot. I have no privacy. So that's a HIPAA violation right
Yeah.
away. So I'm
Exactly.
I'm just getting pissed off, right?
Hmm.
And I show up to a meeting and one of the chiefs like, "Oh, Myler's here, mask up." And I was like, "Okay, that's the last meeting I'm coming to."
Right.
And then after that, I was like just kind of holed up in my office most of the time. And I'm like, well, let me start doing a job hunt, see what's
You
out
know
there,
what?
see if I
Most
can.
places, the last thing they want is they want to see their brain power walk out the door. Years of experience
Mm-hmm.
and everything. They don't
Yeah,
want to lose that. They do not want to lose it.
you would think.
Yes.
You would
Yes.
think, but they were pressuring me to get out, and they did have the religious exemption, and I'm like, well, what if it's not a religious exemption? What if it's a
What if it's a
scientific
common
exemption?
sense exemption? What do you think
What
about
if
common
it's
sense?
yeah, what if it's I did my research and I think that there's so many red flags here that
Yeah,
I don't want to do this and it doesn't even have anything to do with being a Christian.
yeah.
And but the only thing that they had available was you have to sign this religious exemption. I'm like, all right, I believe this is BS. How about that? That's my
Yeah,
part of my religion, right? It's my belief set
right,
that this is
exactly.
BS. So I
And
had to fill out all this.
unfortunately,
So I could
you
have
know,
stayed in, but
no,
yeah,
you
it
know
was
what? And
just
I think a lot. Well, it turned out, but I think a lot at the beginning, a lot of people they weren't like, hey, they were just like, hey, I want to find out more about this. I'm not sure, and they were
and
like,
that's how I
really,
started. That's how I
right,
started.
and I think it snowballed out of control. And they were like, wait a minute, what is this? What? Just because I'm like saying, hold on, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people had black pilled them about what's going on here because they
Hmm.
didn't feel like this should not be such a big deal, in other words. And it
Yeah.
turned into a huge deal.
And then, trying to ground people at home. No, you're not allowed to travel. No, you're not allowed to go to church anymore. Oh, well, you can go to the bar,
Oh yeah,
that's
the
okay.
liquor stores are open,
And you can go,
but
and at first you can go to some restaurants, and you're
yeah,
like, what?
yeah, exactly. Because yeah, the germs don't work that way.
All this stuff that I saw. The one guy, he had this mask on his face, and then he cut a line in the mask so he could eat with the mask on, and this whole mask
That's
is opening
funny.
up. All these,
Oh, that's great. That's a great
yeah,
story.
saw a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of funny
telling you.
stuff.
It's like, okay, it's like, all right, your common sense is, you're about as you got the common sense of a turnip. It's like, okay. I'm
Yeah, a
telling
lot of
you.
it was funny. It really
Yeah, I know when
was.
you look, but you know what? How's this? When you look at it sometimes in retrospect, but sometimes it was like, yeah, I think a lot of people got disillusioned with others around them. Like, man, I didn't know you were that stupid. Like, dude, like, don't you like, does it follow everybody else off over the side of the cliff kind of deal? You found a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
people
lemming.
like that.
Yeah,
Let me. But anyway, John, thank you so much. You have been absolutely wonderful to talk to. Are you working right now on any books or on any other project?
I'm actually trying to get published.
Okay.
Um, Working with a guy who's trying to get an editor, and that's where my focus is right now. I just finished 2 books last year. I mean,
Wow.
these two that I pointed out.
Okay.
Uh, they're part of a series that continuation of the Jimmy Prophet Library. I get into all kinds of paranormal stuff through this fiction.
Okay.
Um, and then the other stuff, I go on podcasts and stuff. I actually went to this conference. I was invited to a
Mhm.
UFO conference here near San Francisco, and I got to speak at that. So that was cool.
Okay.
Uh, and I'm trying to do what I can without spending myself into oblivion. Because as an author, I've lost a lot of money over the years. I
Mhm.
nowhere near the profit margin. I'm at
Yeah.
a very much a negative loss. Um,
Yes.
but part of it's because um, I'll give my books away to anybody who emails me and asks.
Mm.
I do ask
Okay.
for a review on Amazon if you can, but if
Okay.
anybody is interested in any of my books on my website, my email address is jmyler@yahoo.com. First initial, last name.
And your
Uh,
website, what's your website address for the podcast
uh,
listeners?
www.johnmyler.com. That's my
Okay.
name. But I also have several other websites, the names of my books, and they're easier to remember.
Okay.
ChristianUFology.net,
Mhm.
um, TheStrongDelusion.net, um, AliensInTheBible.com, and AliensAndTheAntichrist.com.
Okay.
All of those go to my website, my
All
author
right. They end up
email
there.
address.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you type Christian ufology, you'll
You're
find
gonna
me.
come up. Okay.
Yeah. And my website is where I got all of my books at. And my email address is on there also. So, I just don't want money to get in the way.
Mhm.
And if, people are interested at any of my things that I'm saying or my research, um, and you're having a hard time finding a few bucks to pay for a Kindle or whatever, I'll email you a free PDF
PDF
of
version of
any
it.
book, of any book. Yeah, and
Okay.
no reservation. Um, so
Excellent.
so there's that. Yeah, I still would like to try to get some of my money back that I spent on marketing over the years, but it's okay. I've learned to live with it.
Let
I
me tell you
just
something.
hope that maybe someday I'll get my breakthrough because 2 of my books are screenplays too, and hopefully
Okay. All right. That's
I w-
something.
I got a master degree in screenwriting. Just to
Okay.
be able to learn how to do that. But being a screenwriter that's actually optioned a screenplay is probably even harder than being a traditionally published author.
You know
So,
what? I'm gonna say this real quick. Also, the entertainment industry, I think, is under a big giant shift right now.
hmm
Whether it's Hollywood or other types of entertainment, I think that right now it's like, it's
AI
everything is.
may throw it into a blender for all we know. I mean,
Oh no, it's like, okay,
AI is
actor.
becoming so sophisticated, you might be able to just describe a movie and have it create one
Right,
for
and
you.
forget, the hiring. You would have these actors. It's like, forget it. We don't need you anymore. We'll invent somebody like you.
Yeah, definitely.
That's down. That's right there. As a matter of
Well,
fact.
I heard James Earl Jones sold his voice,
Well,
so
see that I can
you could sell
understand.
your voice now. You could sell your
Okay.
voice and stuff, but then they'll take your likeness too.
Oh yeah,
Star
that's
Wars was finished. Princess Leia died, and they still
yeah.
finished it with her. And AI, it just
But I think that they'll put like a composite of what are the let's take these three main actors that were
hmm
favorites, and they'll just tell AI, we want you to generate a composite of these three, you
yeah,
know,
create a
and then
completely non-existent human being,
exactly, exactly.
and that's our new actor, and it'll be a
That's it.
complete AI cast.
Right. And
And
that's it. And
yeah,
we don't have to give him any type of salary. This is it. It's our property. And if he's
hmm
really big, we'll have him make another movie because then we'll just make him a character.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
about to break.
AI, the only thing that AI has a hard time with is original content.
Oh yeah, of course. Of
You can
course.
throw like 5 books at it and say, make a book using these characters and
Mhm.
this story, and it'll go a little ways, and then it'll ask you for more information.
Sure.
What do you want now? What do you want to do? It can't
Yes.
create something that
No, yeah,
doesn't
I know. It's
previously
only as good as the
exist. So
information that it's given, but I don't think it's as good as extrapolating stuff as people think. I
yeah,
think. But
it's going to get better. It's going to get a lot
sure.
better, and it could
Let's see.
certainly help you. Well,
Oh sure.
better, yeah, better and worse.
I think that's the crux of the matter is like,
Yeah.
yeah.
How
And
many people's
unfortunately we
jobs
get,
are going to go out the window?
oh
Yeah.
my God, yeah. We get suckered into it because it's gonna help you. Remember
Mhm.
that iRobot movie, the last one that came out? Like they give everybody their own personal robot, but basically it turns into a spy inside your house, and at the end of the movie doesn't let you out the front door. I don't know if
Well,
you remember.
that's what this is.
Well, but see, it doesn't stand in the movie, and I was looking at that because of course it's using, Asimov, you know,
hmm
story, where at the end, because of the download and the evil whatever, when you're ready to leave, it stands in front of the door and says you're not allowed to leave. It's like,
hmm
oh, okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's probably one of the only things that's gonna slow it down a little bit.
but then, otherwise
Yeah,
it'll make dinner for you and do all
yeah,
the drudge work. But that's, I think, how people are going to get suckered into it.
yeah.
It's
AI
like it's going to
assistants, I
be,
tell you, I'll prophesy it now. AI
it's,
assistants are going to be a thing probably
yeah,
within 3 or 4
yeah,
years. Everybody's going to have an AI assistant, just like they all have an AI phone.
yeah, yep. And if you're not,
Yeah,
you'll be like the dummy. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
You'll be the dinosaur.
Yeah, like, all right, all
Scared of
right.
it because you don't understand it. It's like, no, I
Exactly.
understand it. I'm apprehensive enough about my phone now from what I know in the military and what the NSA does. So
Yeah.
they could turn on any phone now.
Yeah, that's what
There's a
everybody.
reason you can't pull batteries out anymore. They can remotely turn
Yeah,
them on.
that's
They can
I have
remotely
an
turn them
iPhone.
on, record your conversations, take pictures, extract your data. All of your pictures have geo data location, so they know
Yes.
where the picture was taken. They know what you buy. They know what you're interested in. They know your likes, your dislikes, every text you've ever said, every phone conversation you've ever had. They know everything about you.
Yes, because that's why they scrape information. But I
Yeah.
remember, because for people that have been around long, enough, once upon a time, all phones had removable batteries that you could
Mm-hmm.
replace the batteries on them.
Yeah.
For
Now
example,
you
my
can't.
iPhone, I had to take it because it gave me this sign where the battery was only charging up to 85%.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to take it to not even an iPhone store, but I had to take it to a tech place that did iPhones in order to replace the battery. All right, so it would be
Mm-hmm.
fully charged. But none of that, before you could pop out the battery and just pop in a
Yep.
new one. Nope,
Mm-hmm.
not no more, like you
Not
said.
anymore. And there's a reason.
Of
Yeah.
course there is.
Well, I'm sorry
But
I keep pulling you back into a
nah, don't
conversation.
worry about it. I will be contacting you soon, John.
All
Okay?
righty.
Take
Okay.
care.
Sounds good. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so what did you think? Neat, huh? You know what? Hold on. Let me put myself back in here somewhere. Wait a minute, Maureen. Here we go. No, here we go. No, here we go. Wow. Okay, whatever. Here we All right. Anyway, um, what he talks about is that what's going on, what's coming down the pike for us, like at 100 miles an hour, because that's how I feel sometimes. Is it part of biblical prophecy or not? You know, and I think, and I'm not saying one way or the other, but I think a lot of people want to put that into the equation because it'll justify what's happening. Like, okay, these things that are happening are very disquieting. They're alarming. They're like, wow. And it's like, okay, well, if it's coming as part of biblical prophecy, then I may not be happy with it, but at least I understand why it's happening. All right. And what if it's not? What if it's us getting ourselves all into trouble all by ourselves? In other words, not fulfilling a prophecy, just because whether you want to call it hubris or just stupidity. But even very intelligent people, and this I'm going to say, like when I say whether it's in, organizations run by people that are supposedly experts and scientists, they can still be stupid, or they overlook the obvious consequences down the road for humanity. They don't care, that too. Or some things like there's certain things that you shouldn't do, even if, let's say, we could do it, whether it's technology or science. But there's always a couple in the group that will say, well, let's do it anyway. In other words, just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's always some in the group that'll say, well, let's see how far we can take this, even if the outcome might be unknown, or whether it's positive or negative, or chances are that's very negative. Or how's this? If we're talking here experimentation of theories, whatever it might be, whether it's even like you say the CERN collider, physics, robotics, AI, fill in the blank. But up to a certain point, they could say, you know what? This is a roll of the dice. Let's say we're experimenting, because that's usually how science goes forward. What are the possible outcomes or variables in this? And sometimes they could say, well, we might have this type of outcome as in a negative. And we could prepare that if that happens, we'll do this to shut it down, stop it, counteract it, pull back, whatever. But sometimes I think that in some of these areas, or they're going into things that you don't really know what you're doing to begin with, and you might guess a certain outcome, or that you would like that certain outcome based on a theory, but you really have no fallback plan, either for a possible negative outcome, or it could just be something that you have no idea that would come about out of what you were doing. That kind of deal. And I think that's the worrisome part, because I'm all for progress, but what are the stakes? What is at risk? Okay. And I think sometimes if you have a certain goal, and you can say, well, sometimes certain goals, if the risk is too high, you put that on the shelf and say, you know what, this would be great to learn how to do this or acquire this technology. That's great. If we could do that, man, whatever. But sometimes the way to get it at that point in time would be very risky. And again, when I'm saying risky for humanity, for whatever, whoever's involved in this, right? And sometimes you have to put stuff on the back burner and wait. You know what? That would be great, but let's wait because maybe down the road in the future, we'll have a method of being able to experiment or work on that we'll have learned certain ways to minimize the risk. Yeah, maybe not now. Now, right now, and I think the concern here is that there's people there that either the thirst for knowledge and or money and or power, in other words, the knowledge, it's not so much the knowledge. The knowledge is the stepping stone to acquire power and money. All right. The knowledge just for the sake of the knowledge, doesn't really matter. It's just, what can I do if I harness that knowledge? Either I own it, I have it, then I can have these other two things. That doesn't stop somebody from saying, or when I say somebody, I want to say a group of people or a company or whoever, from saying, you know what, that would be great if we could get that outcome, whatever it is the experiment is, or theory or model or whatever. But there's just too many unknowns in it. There's too many weird outcomes that maybe we wouldn't know how to handle. Let's put that on the shelf for now, until maybe later on down the road we have maybe developed some type of technology or something, or we learn maybe how certain things work, that then it won't be as risky. And that's what worries me, that there's, I want to call them what I think they are, psychopaths that that run a lot of powerful companies, agencies, whatever, that they don't care. You know what? If if this turns out bad, so there's a few people, million people, thousands of people dead or maimed or whatever, impaired. Well, what's that saying is, few broken eggs. I think that was a line Joker had in, I think in the first Batman. You got to break a few eggs. That day is just like, oh well, that comes with part of achieving whatever it is that I want to achieve. And I think there's a lot of people, because let's face it, if you are a person that thinks like that, but you have no power or authority or position to do it, it's like, okay, well, maybe the worst that can happen is if you have a family, they wish they weren't your family. But when you have a person that has, through one way or another, achieved a position that can do these things, it's that's what I'm saying. It's not, let's say, for example, this thing with the AI, it's not AI in and of itself. It's who's manipulating or using or the AI. That's where the problem comes in. That it's like, how's this? If I'm going to use Hollywood, because I think Hollywood's, it gives everybody a good point of reference. Like the Alien movies, the one with the protagonist was Ellen Ripley. From the very beginning, the first movie, that they're miners. This ship is there's a mining ship, and they're owned by a company, or the company. And then they realize, of course, that they're expendable because they've discovered a life form that apparently, besides mining, there was always a secondary purpose. That's why they even had a science officer. I'm talking about the first one that was a robot. That if they ever discovered a life form like this, everybody, in other words, humans were expendable. They had to bring it back, even though, let's say, it was something they could barely control. And whoever's followed the Alien movies, whether it was number 2, but especially number 3, even number 3, which I know a lot of people don't think it was a good movie. I thought it was pretty decent, where supposedly, the guy that owns the company or runs the company, comes out there is he's wanting to get this life form, even though it's basically, it's invasive. It takes over. Plus, it kills you. I mean, any life form. They don't care just because they want it. They want to have it. They got to study it, whatever. And sometimes I think we have the versions of that, possibly like behind now the advances in AI and robotics. And we're the expendable part of it, or the collateral damage. And I don't know. Maybe I'm being pessimistic, even though I'm not a pessimistic person. But sometimes I think that's what scares me most. It's not the AI or the robotics. It's who's running the show. What do you guys think? Anyway, guys, I hope you liked this show with John Milor. Again, I'm going to put a link to his website on the credits of the show. I'll sign up for my Substack newsletter. Go to mppellister.com or miamighostchronicles.com. Again, I have links to everything, including my other podcasts on there. All right. And I want to thank you again for being part of my audience, coming back every week. And I will see you all very soon. Till next time, take care.